This meeting at your career. We are planning that this should be. Thank you, honorable members. Our 2 minutes is over. Like the committee secretary has said, the chairperson of the portfolio committee, she is absent today. And if members will recall that we planned that this should be the last meeting for us for this term before we go for the recess. So in other words, members, everything that today is on our agenda, we must make it a point that we work so hard and finish everything so that we don't see ourselves coming back next week to continue with what we would have not finished today. So members, can we then move to look at our agendas for today? In the agenda, let's start with the apologies. We have declared the meeting open already. Let's get to the apologies. The secretary, can you lead us on the issue of the apologies?
Thank you very much, Acting Chair. I have a couple of apologies, written apologies I've received. One is from the minister who wasn't with us today. She attended the cabinet meeting. Another one is from the deputy minister who's also on duty. She attended, she's on site inspection at KZN construction of the disability center. And another one is from the acting director general, DG, who wasn't with us today. She's accompanying the minister on to the Northwest for an interministerial committee to provide the technical support. For members of the portfolio committee, I have an apology from Honourable Yoste, who wasn't with us today. She's in Free State for the rest of the week. Another one is from Honourable Malhas, who also not feeling well. She's been booked off. Another one is from the chairperson of the committee. And that's all the apologies I've received, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Honourable members, there are the apologies. Is there anything that you want to say on the apologies? Okay.
Sorry, on the letter for the acting DG, she indicated that she deploys Ms. Nomalo to lead the delegation for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Lizelle.
Acting Chairperson, while we will obviously accept the apologies, I just think since Parliament will go into recess until August, and we're working with a Constitutional Court deadline for August as well, it would have been nice to have either the Deputy Minister or the Minister here. With both of them absent and us going into such a long recess, I do want to express my concern that neither of them are here.
Thank you, honourable members. What are you suggesting, that we move on and accept the apologies?
I'm just saying that I want to put on record that I find it concerning that neither of them are here and we're going into a very long recess. And this is the last time that we'll meet to deal with SASSA issues. So I just wanted to put that on record.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Lizelle. Honourable members, can we accept the apologies? You moved? Honourable Mazopa? Can you be on record, honourable members? I said it. It's not on.
It's on, maybe it doesn't. Hello.
Yes.
Thanks, Honourable Chair. I want to support the move or to accept the apologies as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Mazopa. Can we then move to the second part, Honourable Mkhotsi? You fine? Okay. Can we then move to let's look at the agenda. and move to the second part of the agenda, which is the presentation by the Department of Social Development on its fourth quarterly financial performance, the briefing by SASSA, adoption of committee report, adoption of outstanding minutes. Can I finish, Honourable Member?
No.
Okay. Yeah, Honourable Members, this is the agenda. Can we perhaps, if we've got suggestions on how do we deal with the agenda, whether you want to move some of the items on the agenda, then we can do that. I'm opening that for Honourable Members. Honourable, you know, now that I'm chair, I've forgotten all your surnames.
That's fine. That's fine, Chair.
Just call me
As long
Liz,
as you
it's
didn't
fine.
forget I'm honourable. The reason why I was sort of looking like I'm interrupting you is because I didn't have an agenda.
Oh, you don't have an agenda?
Yes, that was the point.
All of us, we don't.
We don't have.
You don't have an agenda?
Yes.
Secretary, I seem to be having many agendas here. Can you assist? Are you all fine, Honourable? Can you look at the agenda? If perhaps you want to rearrange it, we do that before we adopt it. Should you continue with it as it is, Honourable Members? Honourable Lizelle?
Chair, may I propose that we deal with the SASSA matter first before we go to the fourth quarter report, and then the rest of the committee reports and all the other work that we need to do, as a suggestion.
Okay. Honourable Members, Honourable Lizelle is suggesting that let's start with the SASSA and then move the second item on the agenda to become the first item to become the second item. Honourable Mokgotsi?
Chairperson, maybe honourable member needs to assist us. Why must we start with the SASSA matter? Because we can take the program, the agenda the way it is, the department present, then after the department, we can take the SASSA issue. Why I'm saying this, I know most of members after SASSA report, they leave the meeting. So can we follow what the agenda is? If maybe it was the question of if we're proposing that the report maybe of KZN comes up forward, but on the issue of SASSA, let us leave the agenda the way it is and we present. And taking what the member said, that the minister is not in, the deputy minister, why are we in a rush for it?
Okay, Honourable Members, let me also assist. The last two items, Honourable Members, you must remember those are committee items. Departments will not be here. I'm talking about the first two items, the presentation by Social Development and SASSA. So the last items will remain as they are because it will only be us as the committee. Honourable Madlopa.
Thanks, Honourable Chair. No, Chair, I think let us follow the agenda as presented, led by the department. Department do the presentation. After that, SASSA do the presentation, because when SASSA is doing the presentation, maybe there will be some of the questions that will be asking to the department when they have already finished the presentation. So let us adopt the agenda as presented and move forward, Chair.
Honourable Members, Honourable Lizelle. Okay. Thank you, Honourable Members. Can we then move for the adoption of the agenda? Honourable Madlopa.
I therefore move, Chair, that we accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Any seconder? Honourable Sonti. Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Members. Can we then move to the presentation by the Social Development? You must also bear in mind, Honourable Members, that the person who will be leading the delegation is Usis Koni Ngumalo. So I'm just going to give over to her, perhaps if there is something that she would want to say before we can then get a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Members. We will be presenting our last quarter performance, including the financials. I just want to alert the committee that there's a presentation we have circulated now. It's just detailing how the figures that we have circulated in the previous presentation are coming from. So the CFO will speak to the revised presentation so that the details are given to the committee. Mr. Tabani Butelezi will be leading in terms of the performance, and then Mr. Clifford Appel, as the CFO, will deal with the financials. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can proceed, Mr. Shaban.
Thanks, Honourable Acting Chair and all members as well as colleagues. Thanks. We are here, as the Acting DG has said, presenting the performance and expenditure of the department during the period of January and March 2018, which is the last quarter of the previous financial year, 2017-2018. The presentation is arranged as per the norm in terms of how we've been presenting it, but honourable members will note that since the third quarter performance which we presented last week, we have also now tried to add more information in terms of the targets that we have not met and those that probably have been overachieved, in so that we give much more explanation rather than just presenting the targets that were fully met. I'll just give the overview, which it's something that has been standard, the purpose, strategic priorities that we have. So we are here to present, as I indicated, our performance in terms of the predetermined objectives of the first quarter of the previous financial year, which is 17-18. That is a period of January until the 30th of March 2018. And my colleague, Mr. Clifford Appel, will present the state of expenditure during that period. We still have the same strategic objectives, which we've adopted for the MTSF, which MTSF will be ending in the next financial year, which is 2019-2020. We've got 5 programs which are already known, admin, which provides the leadership and the management as well as support services to the department. We've got Program 2, Social Assistance, Program 3, Social Security Policy and Administration, Program 4, Welfare Services Policy Development and Implementation, and finally we have Program 5, which is Social Policy as well as Integrated Service Delivery. This is the program in which we provide, through which we provide support, especially to community development as well as the evidence-based policy as we make the policies in the department as well as in the sector. Let me just provide the first presentation by portraying the trends in which the department over the past 4 quarters. This is how we've been performing. Honourable members will note in the fourth quarter, which is a period under review, the department had fully met 67% of their targets, the predetermined objectives. 6% were partially met, and as you note as well in the presentation, this is the only quarter in which we have a very minimal number of targets that were partially met, and it's understandable because this is a final quarter, and some of the work should have been completed by now, and we had about 27% of those that we did not meet at all. And larger proportion of those targets, I would just indicate, they fall within Program 4 and Program 5, and we do provide explanation, and it's contained in the presentation as well, and I'll take you through it. Now, let's look at each program, how we have done. I'll start with Program 1, which is Administration. But before that, let me present how we disaggregate these targets. In the previous financial year, we had a total of 94 targets, and during this quarter, it was only 62 of them that were met. 24 were not achieved, and it's about 8 which were not. I did indicate, as you'll see, it was mainly Program 4 and 5, which had probably a larger proportion of targets that were not met. For example, in Program 4, they had a total of 32, they only met 18, they did not meet 13. Program 5, they had 23, they did not meet 7 of those, they were able to meet 23 of the 31. So this is how the distribution and the desegregation of these targets per program, and those that we were able to meet and against those that we did not. As I said, we'll be able to provide an explanation, especially amongst those targets we did not meet. Moving to Program 1, starting with international relations as well as gender targets, we had a target to analyze and report the status and implementation of the social cluster. So the Office of the DG has that responsibility of having to monitor the implementation of all the decisions, and that's our recommendations that are taken probably at foresight as well as the social protection cluster as well. And indeed, the unit was able to monitor and follow up on all those targets and those decisions as well. On terms of gender, one of the targets is for us to make sure that we are able to facilitate the integration of gender-related issues within our policies and the department as we develop them. Indeed, during this period under review, we're able to make sure that gender integration is incorporated within the childcare and protection policy. On M&E as well as internal audit, for M&E, we're able to finalize the M&E tools that are related to outcome 13. These were completed during the period under review, and also within risk on our target to audit the risk-based projects, were to review the compliance with legislation in some of the projects, and these were done, and it was 7 of those audit projects that were completed during this period to make sure that we're in compliance with the policy as well as the legislation as set. Moving to HR, human capital management, as well as finance, one of the targets on HR was for us to facilitate that we develop the Social Development Academy, and to make sure that we have both the facilitators as well as the learner manuals, and this target was fully met as these were fully done. On the finance, we had a target to make sure that we have an highly qualified audit report on the annual financial statement, and indeed the department obtained an highly qualified audit opinion from the Auditor General of South Africa, and that is for the previous financial, which is 16-17, on all our audited annual financial statements. Moving now to the targets that we did not meet. On program one of them relates to the information and knowledge management policy. For us, what we were able to manage here, we wanted to submit this to MENCO for approval, but the policy was presented at MENCO, and MENCO felt that this needs, which is the management committee, felt that this still needs to go to a policy forum, which is a policy review, to the policy forum, and so that it's considered before it gets to be approved by MENCO. So management committee was not happy with the status of that particular policy. Or where we wanted to conduct an evaluation, one of the targets that we could not fully meet, we had planned to conduct an evaluation on the social crime prevention strategy. But when we wanted to do this evaluation, we realized that there should be a lot of preliminary work that needs to be done that informs the design of that evaluation. But what then has been completed, we have an inception report which has been submitted. We have developed a theory of change regarding the social prevention strategy, as well as the preliminary literature review has been finished. So all the work will be then completed. The evaluation will be implemented in the current financial year, which is 2018-2019. One other target that we did not meet relates to legal services. The commitment that we had, our target was for us to make sure that we vet and all our contracts, 98% of our contracts through the contract management system. But as a department, we had moved now because of technology to what is called the Smart Gov. And it's been giving us challenges as a department, but all the contracts that were there, which is 39 of them, were able to be vetted, but they were not vetted through the system, but it was only through, those were done manually. But the second was met, but it just that it was not through the contract management system. On the communication, we had a target to develop the strategy, communication strategy, and the consultations for us not to complete it on time, it's just that they took time than we had anticipated as the department. The last 2 targets that were not met relate to IT as well as HR. On HR, we had a target to develop a sector human resource plan, which we had hoped that it would be presented and approved at the forum in which it's called MINMEC, which is the Minister as well as the MEC forum, and be able to launch it there. We're hoping that by the 4th quarter it should be launched. But the MEC had resolved that it can't go to MINMEC because one of the issues that management committee raised was that to make sure that that sector human resource plan is aligned to the strategy of the department, and the strategy has not yet been developed in terms of for the outer years, and we only be able to have our own strategy dialogue, which will be done, I'm sure, within a month time from now. Finally, was for us to integrate on an IT all our welfare services case information system into one information case management system. The task became huge because there are a lot of these, but what we were able to do, we out of 11 silo welfare services systems, 4 of them have been already completed in terms of being integrated, and will continue to do that. It's just that the challenge has always been additional capacity for us to complete this particular assignment. Moving to program 2, which is a very straightforward program. It's about transfers of money to grants. Most of these targets have been fully met without any challenge. I'll just indicate that, as I presented last week on the third quarter, there were issues, especially on the foster care, which was about over 50,000 less cases because of people reaching the age for them to be eliminated from the grant. In the current quarter, it was about 18,000. You can see the discrepancy in terms of the target, which was 420,000. It was about 402 of those. And I'm sure SASSA, when they present, probably if it's on the grants as well, they can provide much more detailed information. And it's also on the social relief, as we'll see. On this quarter, we had a low uptake than a target of 125. We only had 87,000. And it's because in the 3 previous quarters, most of the people have been provided with RD. So we had to allow for some kind of equalization so that we don't so much exceed our annual target, which is 500,000 SRDs that we had to provide. Moving to program 3 on social security policy administration. This deals mainly with the policies that we develop relating to comprehensive social security and social reforms. And one of the targets was for us to submit to the minister our policy on universalization of benefits, especially that relates to the older persons, for her to approve. And these have been done. We have submitted this to the minister. We had also had a target to consult on the discussion paper for us to universalize the provision of the child support grant. And this paper has been revised and is finalized. Also, we had been able to draft a policy paper on the cover of retirement, on the mandatory cover for retirement, as well as disability and survivor benefits. Furthermore, we also, under program 3, we had a target to consult on to consultants so that we are able to have a revision paper, so that we have a final discussion paper on pregnancy as well as maternity benefit, and this has been finalized. It's been revised and finalized. Moving to the appeals unit within comprehensive social security, we always achieve this target where we are able to adjudicate more than 70%, which is always our target. As we see, we are always around 95 and 98% of all the appeals that we have received, with full reports and information from SASSA, and this demonstrates a very good collaboration between ourselves as DSD as well as SASSA. We also had a target, which was an annual target, to conduct 4 compliance audit activities at SASSA offices. It was one that was reserved for the 4th quarter, and most of them had been completed in the previous quarters. But in this period of review, it was 5 compliance audits that were able to be done. On the inspectorate, we had another target to conduct 2 fraud awareness campaigns, and what was achieved is that 3 fraud awareness campaigns were conducted in the following areas, which is Limpopo, Sekukune, as well as Waterberg districts, which is 2 of them in Limpopo, as well as 1 in Gauteng, specifically at the Soshanguve local office. Another target on the inspectorate within social security was for us to conduct 6 stakeholder engagements on how to implement the stakeholder as well as partnership strategy, and 12 stakeholder engagement were held with SASSA, especially in the Eastern Cape region during this particular period. And the plan was to engage SASSA to seats and due to service delivery demands, and the expert was required to reach out to staff and local offices. Moving to program 4, which is welfare services policy development and implementation support. There's quite a number of targets in this, as I did indicate that the total of more than 30 targets annually in the APP out of the 94, so they have a larger proportion of those targets. One of the targets under Professional Social Service and Older Persons unit was for us to finalize the demand and supply chain model, and this has been approved. And at the MANCO, at the Management Committee Forum, and also we had a target. We were able to monitor the implementation of the recruitment and retention strategy successfully, and another target was for us to conduct an older persons parliament, and this has been evaluated, and the report is available, and it's been done in collaboration with the stakeholders as well as our provincial counterparts. On early childhood development services, our target is one on the provision of subsidy. I did indicate previously that there was a challenge here in terms of breaking down this particular target in terms of the numbers. They should not have been broken down into quarterly target because this remains constant almost throughout the whole year. Last week in the third quarter, it was about 55,000, and you can see now there's slight increase, about 60,000 of children that benefited from the subsidy that we provide through the conditional grant, ECD conditional grant. Also, in terms of for us to obtain approval on the infrastructure plan, and this plan will target to present it to the management forums within the DSD sector for approval, and indeed this has been done and it's been approved even by our own acting Director General. Another target was for us to make sure that 152 ECD centers are able to benefit from ECD maintenance grant, and indeed this has been fully met. It was just not only 152, but actually it was 198 ECD centers that benefited from this maintenance grant. On services to children, orphans and vulnerable children, one of the targets is for us to register all the adoptions that we receive from Children's Court with complete record. As you could see in the period under review, it was 335 of all the adoptions which are recorded, 336 of them being national and 19 of them being inter-country adoptions. We also had a target to disseminate the concluding observations on the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and indeed this was disseminated, and especially in the provinces of Northwest, Eastern Cape, as well as Free State. So the target was 2, but actually it was 3 that was attained. Still on children's services as well as orphans, another target was for us as DSD National to build capacity of our provincial counterparts on them on how to on the Children's Amendment as well as the Second Amendment, as well as the Children's Second Amendment Act, and indeed we're able to build capacity in the province, especially the Eastern Cape, and which has been the only remaining province in the whole year. So other provinces have been capacitated in the previous quarters. Moving now on us having to establish provincial multidisciplinary committees, especially on the integrated social crime prevention. This was done, and these committees are existing in various provinces, and the province have these multidisciplinary committees. On social crime prevention and empowerment, our target is regarding the gender-based violence, the command center. We always want to increase the number of people that are accessing it. Our target was to make sure that during this quarter is 2.5%. This has been almost overachieved. Currently, annual in the whole quarter, over 3 months, it was over 16,000 of people that have make sure that they've increased, and this is way beyond the 2.5%. This through the calls as well as the SMS, including the Please Call Me, that people could send to our gender-based violence command center. So this target seems to have been overachieved. We also had another target still regarding victim empowerment services, where we wanted to collect data on the 200 VEP sites annually. And for this quarter, it was only 50. But in the actual, because we were able to do 45 in Limpopo, 27 in KZN, as well as 44 in the Northwest. And through this monitoring of the implementation of the system, the challenges were identified and more sites were connected, and data is being currently collected or collated. We also had another target to train provinces and teenage and parenting program. And indeed, we were able to do that in 2 provinces, which is KZN, which was done in February, and as well as Limpopo, which was completed as well as in March, and the dates are provided in the slide. Social crime prevention still. The last slide on it is for us as a department, we decided to compile reports and to train provinces on Sinovuyo National Parenting Program, and this was completed, and the training report is available as a portfolio of evidence. We also had a target to conduct 3 national anti-substance awareness campaigns during the during the beginning of the year, of course, as the students move to universities, so we're able to target various institutions of higher learning. As you can see, it was in about 8 of those campaigns that were conducted in various universities, which include the University of Pretoria, both in Mamelodi as well as on the sport campus, the UJ, the Soweto campus, and Mangosuthu, Technicon, and so forth, as listed in the slide. HIV and AIDS, as well as the rights of persons with disability, which is the last program, where the target under HIV AIDS to train 100 implementers, and this was completed. Another target was for us to draft the policy framework on the management of community care workers, and this was consulted with various stakeholders as well as other partners and our provincial counterparts. On disability, where the target for us to update disability inequality index, and this has been completed. Now I want to move, honorable members, to where we show exactly those targets that could not be met during the period under review. On the white paper, there were delays, of course. We wanted to consult all the stakeholders regarding the white paper on social development, and it could not be refined because there were delays from the technical committee to refine it. So this was not fully met. We also had a target for us to submit the social service practitioners bill to cabinet so that we are able to obtain approval for it to be gazetted for public comments. And there's been delays because we couldn't submit it to cabinet because the technical drafting team had the working session for it to review the draft bill in response to the questions that have been raised by the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor. And there's been delays as well for us to obtain delays in submission of the pre-certificate by the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, which is a prerequisite for engagement with the cluster as well as so that the cluster approve towards cabinet. Also on the Older Persons Bill, the reason for us not that to be introduced to Parliament is because of the changes in cabinet as well, which at the beginning of the year, and the bill could not be presented for them to be considered, and in Parliament, so that is introduced to Parliament prior to it's going to cabinet. Also, for us, we would hope to make a target for ourselves to approve or to obtain approval of the National Integrated Implementation Plan for Early Childhood Development Policy, and this has not been done because we had to take time as well to brief the new minister for her to be able to consider that. However, it's not been approved, but the monitoring of the implementation plan has been able to be done. Also, on the approval of the National Plan for Action for Children in South Africa 2018, there's been delays for us. The reason for this deviation because of the cluster concession could not be conducted as a result of the appointment of the service provider who is meant to assist us with regards to that plan. We also had a target to consult all the stakeholders on the child care and protection policy, and this we wanted it to be consulted. In particular, we are targeting the MINMEC, but MINMEC did not sit during the period under review during the fourth quarter, so this could not be obtained. Other targets that were not met or not achieved under Program 4 also include for us to be able to submit the policy framework on accreditation of diversion services to Cabinet for approval, and Cabinet memo has been resubmitted to the new minister so that she's able to undertake the process, and we could only do that in February. And we also had a target to submit the bill to Cabinet so that we're able to obtain the bill on the victim empowerment support services to cabinet so that we obtain approval for it to be gazetted for public comments. And this has only been submitted to the minister so that her office is processing it to cabinet. However, there's been delays for us to obtain that particular approval. This also is the same on the two other targets, which includes the Victim Satisfaction Survey report, as well as the National Drug Master Plan report. These are some of the targets that we are hoping that they will be submitted to cabinet, but there's been delays for us to be able to start the cabinet processes. Well, finally, on the rights of persons with disabilities, still also under Welfare Services Program 4, with the target to submit a policy on social development services to persons with disabilities for cabinet approval, so that it's also published for public comment. And there's been delays as the policy was not submitted to cabinet for approval, and the reason being that it was recognized that a peer review process needs to be established because it will be able to enrich the content of the policy prior to it being approved by cabinet or considered by a cabinet. On the last target under Program 4, which were not met within the rights of person with disability unit, relates to us conducting a pilot project to promote the implementation of the white paper on the rights of persons with disability that will focus on children with disabilities at risk of experiencing compounding marginalization. And this has not been achieved, but however, the Izingane Kala model has been embedded in the updated Offense and Vulnerable Children Services model, as well as in the ECD financing model. The last program, Honourable Acting Chair, as well as members, is Social Policy and Integrated Service Delivery, which is Program 5. Relates to social policy research as well as population and development, as well as community development services. One of the targets was for us to disseminate a policy on the one policy brief, and this was met as the social aspects of HIV as well as the migration in South Africa. Those policy briefs were completed by the unit. We had also convened 9 social sector coordination forums during the period under review. We had also produced a country report on UNCDP under the period under review, as well on the adolescent sexual and reproductive health reports, framework strategy monitor report. This has been produced. We've also been able to produce various reports. This include the ICDP plus 25 draft synthesis report, as well as Population and Development Executive Committee report has been implemented. We did some advocacy as well regarding the report on population development, regarding knowledge and information services. These have been rendered and the report has been complied, and the database, as we are talking, is up to date. We on APSTAR, which is an Applied Population Studies Training, which is a training program in which we target various government officials and some of the postgraduate students, and this has been conducted, and we partner with specific universities for us to render this training. We also have the report on population and development partnership, which has been produced, and some of these reports are also available. Moving to NPO unit, it's about registration of NPOs. We've been able as department of the 98% of applications that have been received. We received a total of 7,035, and almost all of them, which is about 7,009, have been concluded, which amounts to about 99.6%. We received those applications and they were all processed within the period of 2 months. We, as a department, conducted NPO roadshows in which we go to various municipalities. In the period under review, we were able to reach about 17 municipalities through our NPO roadshow program. We did build capacity of various NPOs. The target was 700. We were able to about train 708 of those NPO, specifically on governance as well as compliance issues relating to the NPO Act. On the NPO reporting now on compliance issues relating to NPOs, they have to submit reports. In the period under review, we received about 7,671 of those reports, and they're able to process of them. The target was fully met. It was 97.7 of those, almost 98% were able. The department also has a target to submit our financing policy for approval. And this policy has been developed, it's been consulted, was consulted in February in Free State, and it's been presented to the Policy Forum as well as the Welfare Services Forum and MANCO for them to consider and approve. Finally, on NPO, special issues of funding, we have a target through one program which is about the partnership model for us as government, NPO, as well as relevant stakeholders. We developed that partnership model, and it's been was also consulted, just like we consulted the sector financing policy at both its Free State as well as various forums that exist. On community mobilization and empowerment, we had a practice policy implementation report which has been developed, and also we had community development norms and standards. Its implementation has been completed as well. We developed guidelines on community mobilization and empowerment program, and this has been submitted to the management committee for them to consider and approve. And also what the MENCO have to approve under this was on the guidelines on the implementation of community development interventions program. Moving to youth, the department is currently trying to develop our own DSD-based social development youth strategy for it so that we are customizing the national one to our DSD elements. On the cooperatives, we had to link about 100 cooperatives to various economic opportunities, and this has been overachieved. It was not only 100 but 626. This has been done, and this is a project we are doing in collaboration with our counterparts and colleagues from SASSA. Moving to targets that were not achieved under Program 5, before I hand over to my colleague, the CFO.
Because we have 2 minutes.
Okay. Yes, there are some of the areas. I'll just keep those that relate to cabinet because I've already presented some of them. But in the nutshell, here, what we also wanted to do was to table the NPO amendment bill to Parliament, and there's been delays in tabling that because of the outstanding consultations that the SD is still doing, especially with our provincial counterparts and other relevant. So far, it's only been 3 provinces, and we want to make sure that we are able to reach as many as we can in the outer quarters. Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and members. I'll hand over to my colleague, Clifford, to take us through the finance. Thanks.
Thank you very much. CFO, you've got 10 minutes. Is it fine? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Acting Chair and Honourable Members. Good morning. With regards to our expenditure until the 4th quarter, Chairperson, we spent 159.3 million, or 99.4% of our budget. In terms of our quarter spending, on average, we spent 40 million in the last 3 quarters. Chairperson, in terms of the slide 3, talks to the unaudited expenditure per program, which amounted to 160.3 billion. In terms of our adjusted budget, in terms of the total expenditure, was 159.3 billion, 99.4%. And I'm indicating the major underspent areas. It's in Program 1, 15.3 million, and in Program 5, 1.7 million. Under transfers, there's 1 million overspent in the transfers. I'm going to move to the next slide, which basically indicate where we'll do the dividends. In terms of Program 1, in administration, I'm on the revised presentation that we ended up.
Honourable members, there's a presentation that was circulated, the revised one. I'm not sure if all of us we do have the document. Can you please indicate if you don't have a document? Remember when the acting DG, she said that there is a supplementary document on the revised one, which is the revised one. So we are using it now. Are you fine, Honourable Mazok? Okay, thank you. You can proceed.
In terms of the proposed environments at the year end, in program 1, we will fire 17.6 million. In program 3, we'll reduce and take out 27.4 million. In program 4, 5.9 million, and in program 5, 3.8 million that we will add to those programs. And mainly in program 1, as we've been communicating every quarter, was the expenditure in the ministry, that we could not fix the budget in the previous year, and mainly we had to do most of that expenditure is moving to move the over expenditure in the ministry. In program 3, that's where we took most of the money from, and that's mainly with regards to the cost in the inspectorate, mainly the underspend in the inspectorate, and also in terms of the appeals tribunal where we underspent. And what we've done, we've then moved 17 million into program 1, 5.9 million into program 4, and 3.8 million in program 5. For program 4, the 5.9 million, that is with regards to the, let me just rather go to the programs and we'll see the expenditure. The environments in terms of the economic classification, overall the total environments in terms of economic classification is that we've moved out of goods and services 3.3 million, and then we fund that into the transfers and subsidies, Chairperson. And it's mainly got to do with in terms of the 3 million, that was to fund the overspend in higher education institutions and in terms and NPOs. We go to program 1, Chairperson. Expenditure 99.4% or 384 million. In terms of the environments, we see the ministry, but we have to move 8 million. Corporate services, there's a 15 million that we move to corporate services. And then we reduce within program 1, finance, we reduce internal audit, and there's some office accommodation. In terms of the economic classification, we've got a 6 million that we reduce the compensation with, and we'll see in another program that we've also increased compensation in another program. And then 23 million is moved out of increase in the goods and services in terms of IMS. Program 2, social assistance, Chairperson, there's mainly within the grants, but the expenditure remains, underspent remains 893 million. Program 3, 99.7% total expenditure for the year, or 7.2 billion. And in program 3, we can see that we will reduce social security policy development, 18 million that we're taking out, another 8.5 million in the appeals, and with regards to the economic classification, there is a reduction in compensation and a reduction in goods and services of 25.1 million. Program 4, welfare services, 96.3% expenditure or 1 billion year to date. In terms of the major environments and increases in the program 4, social crime prevention, we will add 13 million, 4 million into youth, and overall the environment that we move into program 1 will be 5.9 million. In terms of the economic classification, it's the compensation there. You see that the reduction in compensation, other programs, we're now increasing compensation in this program, 7.7 million, and then we reduce goods and services with 1.9 million. And it's mainly the issue here in terms of that huge underspend for provinces and municipalities. That's the substance abuse operations cost that we couldn't transfer, for which there was request for environment for rollover from the Free State province. I know. Program 5, 99.4% expenditure, or 386.5 million. With regards to the year environments, we will increase in terms of the population and policy promotion, 3.1 million, and then also increase community development with 1.6 million. Chairperson, 3.8 million that we will move into this program, and mainly with regards to compensation, and that's mainly to assist in terms of the households. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, CFO. Honourable members, we will do things a little bit differently now. This is a new facilitator on the table. So what we're going to do, honourable members, I'm going to note all of you. And then after a member has asked the questions, we will ask the department to respond so that all the questions of that honourable members are answered too. Remember, normally we will ask questions, all of us, and at the end of the day, you'll find that a lot of questions are not responded to. And also perhaps to manage time. That is also going to assist us in terms of making sure that we don't repeat the questions that are already asked by other honourable members. So honourable members, secondly, I'm going to allocate time for each and every member so that your questions are within a certain time. So when it's time up, honourable members, it doesn't matter whether you have asked 20 questions or you still have 20 questions to ask, then we will have to proceed to the next questions. So for each and every member, the allocation is 10 minutes plus the responses from the department. So we all have got 10 minutes to ask your questions and the responses from the department, honourable members. That's how we will be moving. So I'm going to note hands. Can we, therefore, honourable members, raise our hands, those who would want to have discussions on the document that has just been presented to us. Honourable Beverly, Honourable Mukhodzi, Honourable Masango, Honourable Mazopa. Let me note, Bev, Mukhodzi, Masango, Mazopa, Sonti, Honourable Lizel. Honourable members, are we all fine? That's the order that we are going to follow, honourable members, for this session. Can I then hand over to Honourable Bev to start? You've got 10 minutes, your questions and the responses from the department, honourable member.
Thank you, Honourable Acting Chairperson and new facilitator. Yes, we're very impressed with the new style, and I'm sure it will please all of us, because sometimes you're correct, when we pose questions, we actually don't get all our answers. So thank you very much. I think it's a good idea. Thank you to the presenters for the presentation. It was very informative and we appreciate it. In terms of the offices and provinces, I'd like to know at which offices these audits take place. You mentioned audits. And also the provinces, if possible, which provinces and offices where the compliance audit activities take place. Then, was there an improvement after the audit of these offices? And it mentioned 7 projects to determine compliance with legislation and policies were completed. When the department did 7 projects, I'd just like to know the project versus skills development. How does that coincide? Because you've done the projects, the skills development take place. After that has all been done, the staff that were part of the projects, are they compliant? Do they understand what is the legislation and the policy? And how competent are they? Or did I misunderstand the projects versus the skills development? Then also in terms of the right of persons with disabilities to conduct a pilot project, it seems like this has been put on the back burner. Why is it taking so long? The people with disability fighting with us out there in our communities, they want to see this happening. Please put a time frame when this will be done. We have asked the department, and we also impressed acting chairperson with the manner in which they're presenting today, but we'd also like to have some time frames to these items. In terms of the 1.7 million underspending regarding the computer equipment, I think I asked last week about the computer equipment. When will this be delivered? I know we're in May now. Maybe if Mr. Apples can just tell us. Oh, sorry, we're in June. No, thank you. Yes. When will this take place? Because I'm sure the staff would be very, very happy, over happy, when they receive these computers. Because, like I said last week, that they, it's, you know, the computer is very old, and it takes 2 years for you to get a new computer. And if it's 9 years, then it's bad. Yes, I wanted to know if these computers been delivered, and also if skills development take place when all this takes place. We spend millions of rands on new equipment, and we find that sometimes the staff is not equipped to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. I'm sure you have already done your allocation. Who's going to answer which question? Who's going to answer which question? Can you answer the questions of Honourable Member?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. CFO will start with the underspending or the shifting of funds. There was a specific question on that. I'm not sure on the audit. The also CFO will also assist us with that one. And the Inspector Brenda will close. So there are 3 people to respond.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairperson. With regards to the internal audit, all these audits are based within the organization based on our risk assessment. So it's not done within provinces, it's mainly within the department. And in terms of the 1.7 million, the computer equipment, order's been placed, and it will be delivered in July. It's a large order, and they need to configure all those things to be ready that we utilize it within the department. And yes, most of the time, I think most of the people that use this equipment are computer literate, so there's no need for skills transfer. Thanks.
Next person.
I might, good morning, portfolio committee members. I might have misunderstood the question, but I thought the question around audits referred to the ones that are referred to the audits that were done in the provinces. These are the ones that are done by the inspectorate, the currently being incubated inspectorate. They have started to go and assess at SASSA offices the extent to which some of the norms and standards that have been established for service delivery are being implemented. So those are norms that staff at SASSA offices would know about, but then the assessment is just to see the extent to which those are being implemented. And they were done primarily in the Northwest and some in Gauteng, and all of them were done now only in the final quarter. All 5 of them were done in the final quarter. So we will not at this point say what is the result of them, because what is supposed to happen once the audit is done is to have a conversation then with SASSA to say, what are you going to do about the results of those audits? And that will only happen in this financial year.
If I can request you that you must be audible enough, because I think people at the back there, they would also want to understand. I'm also struggling to get you guys when you are answering. Can you please speak closer to the mic so that everybody can be able to hear what you are saying? Thank you. You can proceed.
Honourable Chairperson, I just want to speak to the audit for the pilot project for disability. Yes, there was a delay, but I think they have planned to complete the project this financial year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bev. Still have got 3 minutes left if you've got a follow-up question. But if you don't have, then you have saved us a lot of time. Are you fine? Can we then proceed to Honourable Mohotsi? Thank you.
No, Chair, thank you. I won't take 10 minutes. I think I've got only 2 questions. In terms of administration program 1, I just wanted to know, under the expenditure amount of 15.681 million that is recorded under the compensation of employees, what is the status of the department in terms of your vacant post of the DDG, Corporate Service, the Chief Director of Internal Audit, the Chief Director of Welfare Services? And maybe you will assist us, tell us about the issue of a structure, where are we? Are we still considering the old ones that we are having, or you are still on these other 3 that were there? And any implications or any difficulties that you are facing on that? And the other question is on the communication strategy. When the department is planning to envisage this policy and the implementation of it. And remember, when we talk about the issue of a communication strategy, it's quite something that is big and critical, as now we know as a country we are forging for the 4th industrial revolution and what's happening. Can you please assist us? My last question is on the white paper. What are the delays? Because, Chair, it's been long. The department, every time we talk about the delays in this white paper, and who are this technical team that are dealing with the issue of white paper, including the social practice bill? What are the delays? Who are the people doing this? And where are we now in terms of, through you, Chairperson, the DG, what is the problem? Because every time, I think, since from last year, there are delays. And these delays, especially under the social practice bill, we know what is happening up there in terms of the issues of social workers, social auxiliary workers, childcare workers, you know. So the issue of minimum standard, we know that there are problems and challenges that the institution and offices are looking at. Chair, no, thanks. I don't have much because, you know, the first quarter or the 4th quarter report usually is having its own thing. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honourable Mohotsi. Connie?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and members. I'll start with the issue of 15.6 million, the compensation, the status. Where are we? I think honourable members will remember that with the current minister now, the posts have been frozen, pending us finalizing the 2015 partially concurred structure or temporarily concurred structure. Minister indicated in this committee that we will come back with the final working structure that she will submit to DPSA for approval. However, the audit part, the CD, we do have a chief director for audits appointed, and within welfare services, all chief directors' posts were filled. So there's no vacancy as we speak. The DG's post has been advertised, even though the other posts have been freezed, because Minister acknowledged that it's a critical position to be filled. And then the white paper delays, who's leading? This task team is led by Professor Taylor, who is one of the planning commissioners. I think the whole of last year, she had a challenge with it because she's a lecturer at the University of Cape Town. There were issues of delays that really impacted on us negatively. She could not have time to allocate to work on the white paper itself. The other team members were members from outside, which included Ms. Sikwane, who is a veteran social worker, and also Dr. Makasela, who was the minister's advisor. So we have since changed that team because all of these people have left the sector. So the current minister has supported their reappointment of Professor Taylor to continue because it only makes sense. You can't ask for any other person, and she will have time now because she reported that she has since retired at the UCT, so she will devote more time to finalize the paper this year. Because we also think it's urgent because it needs to inform the legislation that we need to have within the sector. With the Social Service Practitioners Bill, the delay was mostly on the state law advisor. They did give some comments that really needed the department to rework on the bill, drafted bill, and we submitted again to the state law advisor. Then it took us more than 6 weeks to get, because that's their time frame. They even tell you within 6 weeks you won't get any response from us because they were dealing with a lot of bills. So, but this year we have since received the inputs back from them. We are going to process it to the cabinet process so that it's gazetted for public comments, because it still has to go for public comments. That's where we are now in terms of moving forward. So we're supposed to go to cabinet by this last quarter that we're reporting today to ask cabinet to allow us to gazette. That did not happen because it's one of the conditions. Cabinet does not want to consider any bill that has no pre-certification that is final. I'm not sure if the communication strategy. Yes, we're struggling in that area because as a sector we are saying, even if we can have a communication strategy, we need to begin to say, what is it that we are known about outside? And this is embedded within the communication strategy. So it's something that we're looking at as a sector to be able to zoom in and make sure that it is really communicating, because we have a negative publicity. Meanwhile, there's also good work that we are doing. And I think it's a communication strategy that will assist us to do that, not to be reactive to media, but also to be proactive. Because when you have a strategy that is costed, you are able to run with your programs and communicate efficiently. I'm not sure if I left anything.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mkhotsi. You still have minutes left. Are you satisfied? Okay. Honourable Masango, you can see that everybody is right on time. So the challenge is on you that
No,
you
Chair.
also have 10 minutes with your questions and the discussions. Thank you.
I will not disappoint, Chair. Just to find out if we will get answers to the last week's questions that were going to be written, and because I have not received any written sort of correspondence in terms of those questions. But the questions for now.
Okay, let's do this. If we will try to allocate time for those questions that could not be answered last week. If all of them you have noted them, I believe. Is there something that you want to say?
I'm sorry, Chair. We have submitted to the Secretariat, and I'm sure it will be distributed to the members.
Okay.
We have submitted today.
Today?
Yes, the written.
Then
All
that's
the
why they are not
outstanding
with
questions
the members.
yesterday, they are written, and we have submitted.
That's why they're not with the members, because you just submitted them now. So, honourable members, we'll just try to allocate some few minutes for those questions, then we deal with them. Remember that this is our last meeting, so we have to deal with almost everything. And we've got a whole day anyway. As long as you are here as honourable members, then we can deal with everything that is outstanding. You can proceed, honourable member.
Thank you, Chair. So can I please have my time redone? So the question for today, Chair, would be the 100 implementers that I believe were trained. I just would like to know where do they come from? I mean, are they throughout the country, or I just needed to know how the 100, represents the country. And then I just want to know, I think one of the honourable members talked about the delays, but for me, I wanted to know the delay, what are the implications of the delays of policies such as the child care and protection policy? What does that delay mean for the actual work that needs to be done in that area? And then the NPO training, when you give a number of the NPOs trained, are you saying it's the organizations or the actual practitioners? that were trained, that number, because I just want to know the footprint or the coverage of the training, if it was organizations at that number or the actual NPO practitioners. And also, I need, just for clarity on this one, the level of activity in the environment space, is that normal? Is that encouraged? Is that why? What does that say about our budgeting processes? I just thought there was a lot of environmenting happening. Excuse my not knowing what to say there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Chair. Okay.
How much time I still got?
No, you still have time.
Okay.
You only use 3 minutes for now.
Okay.
So the responses and everything should be within the 7 minutes that
Okay.
you still have.
Thank you. Chair, the acting DG said something.
Acting.
They said that the inspectorate is incubated. What does that even mean? Does that mean it's operating professionally, legally, or it's acting in its working? I just want to know, what is the basis of the inspectorate? Is it a legal entity? Just that environment. When she said it's incubated, I lost all my understanding. I was trying to master there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and members. Brenda will deal with the inspectorate issue and Mr. Nchipalo with the NPO training. Let me answer on the 100 implementers for HIV and AIDS. These were implementers in all the 9 provinces linked with the service providers that are implementing our YOLO program and psychosocial support in provinces. The delays or the implications for childcare and protection policy, with this one specifically, there's no deviation, if I remember very well in our report. However, this policy, we are prioritizing it because the committee members will remember that the North Gauteng High Court ordered that we come up with a comprehensive legal solution for foster care. So you can only do that when you have a policy backup. So we are fast-tracking the policy so that we can be able to have a legal solution to address foster care as an option within the country. Peter and
on the issue of the 100 implementers, can you perhaps try to assist us with the distribution per provinces? Because if you just say 100 in all provinces, it doesn't say anything, because we'd want to know how many per province. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I will send it in writing. I don't have the notes currently because the method doesn't allow me to process the information and check my iPad here. Thank you.
Okay, you can still check it. Remember, we are still here. In the meantime, you can check it, then we will come back to it later. Thank you.
Thanks, Acting Chair and honorable members. With regard to the NPO training, is the number of NPOs that we are talking about. The individuals might be, NPOs might send, at a normal, we request them to send only 3, not more than 3, so that we can be able to accommodate it. But the numbers that we're talking are the NPOs themselves.
Chairperson, with respect to the inspectorate, the incubation thing, the Social Assistance Act makes provision for an inspectorate to be established, which will function as a department, a standalone department in terms of that legislation, whose responsibility will be to basically oversee and prevent fraud at SASSA specifically. Now, the department decided that what we would do is incubate it, as in, while that section of the act was not proclaimed or is not being implemented, the department would begin to prepare for its establishment. And in the preparation for its establishment, a skeleton staff was appointed who began to do, like, for example, those audits that were done, the few audits that were done, and also began to engage with SASSA officials to tell them about the coming to be of the inspectorate and begin to say to them, this is how we will engage with you. And these are the sorts of things we will be looking at when we do the inspection once the inspectorate is established. However, the provision for its proclamation was changed in that we put in the Social Assistance Amendment Bill that it should not become a department, but rather a component, a government component, so that it won't be another big structure. The proposal is in that bill, which was already tabled in Parliament, but still is going to be delayed because of the timing that we have now. So when the chairperson last week was referring to the timing of and the what is the word, the need to withdraw the bill, that provision for actually implementing the inspectorate is also provided for in that amendment bill. So for as long as that clause is not finalized yet, is not activated, the inspectorate will just be a kind of incubation structure in the department to begin to prepare the ground for its final implementation. Hope that's clear.
Honorable Masango, still have time for follow-up?
Thank you, Chair, but I'm only going to follow up on the inspectorate aspect of the questions. To say so the work that the inspectorate is doing now, what is it? Is it work that can be tested anywhere? Is it fake for now? Just a pilot? That's the part I wanted to know, because it's actually doing work. So can that work stand anywhere?
Thank you.
Well, the work is certainly not fake. It's really operating on the basis of agreement between the department and SASSA, because they don't have the power and the authority yet to actually implement. But in order to prepare and get the department ready to get the inspection happening, we thought, let's begin to do the work. We were expecting that it will be done by the end of the year, the proclamation of it, and that wouldn't start then only to get the ducks in a row. So it's really about getting the ducks in a row.
Honorable Masango, are you fine? Yes, thank you. Okay, you've got a minute only left.
No, but there is a question about violence, Chair.
Okay, in that minute.
Thanks, Chair. And Honourable Masango, the issue with regards to violence, it's within Section 43 of the PFMA that we applied. We are allowed to do that. But what we do first is to make sure that we apply the environment within the program. So where there's over expenditure and under expenditure, we first do the set off within the program, and then only we do the environment between programs. And it's allowed within Section 43 of the PFMA. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I think the issue of the environments, we will come back on it. Remember that for the past 3 years, as this portfolio committee, we have been talking about the issue of environments, how it's done within the department. As much as it's within it's allowed, but remember that we took resolutions year in, year out, that the department should move from doing that. So we will then have to discuss it. I hope even other honorable members might be having questions on it. But then it means I'm going to give it a time that we really deal with it, because we would want to see social development moving away from always varying. You remember that even the environments, we are not agreeing, because they will vary from the core business to Program 1. Thank you, honorable members. We then move to Honorable Madlopa.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. Thanks to the department for the presentation. My question is based on Program 1. I think my colleague have just asked one of it around the issue of the communication. But I want to check, you see, Integrated Welfare Services Information System, whether the department has managed to develop it. And then on program number 4, you talk about the cluster consultation for the approval of the National Plan Action for Children in South Africa, 2018-22 to 2022. That could not be conducted. In other words, it was not achieved. because of the delay in the appointment of the service provider to assist in the plan. What I want to check, what is the cause of the delay of appointing the service provider? That is one. Secondly, what are the cost implications around that particular program going forward? Lastly, Chair, they have indicated in program number, I think it's number 4, that 34 targets as per APP. Oh no, yeah, there were 34 targets as per APP. Yeah, but here seemingly it's like there is an omission of the others. In the APPs, there were like 34, but you have reported like 31, and the other one, if I'm not mistaken, you omitted that one to say maybe you can indicate why, were the targets achieved on those that you never reported on the one. Lastly, Chair, is around the issue of the NPO national road shows. There was an indication that it will be done in 15 municipalities. What one wants to check whether it did take place in those 15 municipalities, and also to be appraised on which municipalities it really takes place, the actual municipalities. Also, if the department can share with us the outcomes of those road shows. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and members. I'll start with the Integrated Welfare Management System. What I want to say is that the IT team is trying to integrate because we have silo systems per sub-program. So what they were trying to do is to assist us to have a seamless system that will work for the welfare sector. So that they've managed to do some, but not all. That's why it is a deviation. They've managed, we do have a child protection system that is linked to the CPR itself. We have systems that are dealing with case management for probation case management. We have one for secure care. So they wanted to bring them together so that we have a seamless system. I must say, currently as welfare sector, we don't have a system that is single that we can say. We zoom in there, you'll find all the variables that you require for different programs, your older persons, your gender-based violence, but it's pockets of systems. So that's what they are trying to assist us with so that we can have a seamless system. Now, with the National Plan of Action for Children, the service provider here that is referred to, this is supported mainly by UNICEF. So UNICEF is providing technical support because the National Plan of Action is one of the requirements that is required by the UN, that each country should have a National Plan of Action. That's why it's timed. It's got a time period, it expires, and then you review. So this is the review. So they had some challenges in terms of appointing somebody who will technically finalize the plan of action itself. And the reasons they've cited is mainly their own procurement system, because in the first time when they advertised for a tender, they could not get suitable service providers to be appointed. But now they've since appointed, and then we will finalize it this financial year. The cost implications, I don't have the figures with me, but I will ask from UNICEF, and then I will submit to the committee in writing. Mr. Pitane Chipale will deal with the NPO national road shows, and then the CFO, Tabani will deal with the targets, 34 versus 32.
Thank you, Acting Chair and the honourable members. With regard to the NPO road shows, we planned for 50 road shows in 15 municipalities. In the quarter, we did 70, and there's a list of the municipalities that we have. I don't have it now, but I think I'll send that. What we do in the roadshow, Remember, this came out of the NPO summit that we conducted in 2012 in terms of access. The office of the NPO registration is in Pretoria. So in order to provide access to the NPOs at a local level, what we have decided is to go to that level. The office in Pretoria descend into a municipality. NPOs come and register and they get the certificate same day. You register here, you wait for 15 minutes, you get your certificate. That's one of the impact. Secondly, if NPOs submit reports there and there, the compliance reports, they also get some sort of an induction as a first thing that we do when they arrive. So the detailed report that I will send, it will have a table of how many we have consulted, how many we have certificate we have issued on site, and how many compliance report we received, and how many queries we have, because some of them might have a query wherein their documents are not complete. We go to a place for 1 day, but the whole day, the whole office goes to that area. The report will be submitted. I think it's a nice table to look at, and the name of the municipality. We will submit that as a supplementary information as required. Thank you.
Thanks. For program 4, of the 94 total number of targets that we have, in terms of the breakdown, the welfare services as a program 4 has 32. This is the actual number of those targets. And of the total 32, it's in terms of how they performed on this 34. In this 32, they only met fully, they achieved 18, they did not, or they partially met 1, and 13 that was not met. So 18, 1, and 13 is 32. But what we are saying is that of these 32 targets, they make a 34% contribution towards the total number of all the targets. So it's 32 in terms of the actual number and a contribution of about 34% that they make as a program 4 towards the total number of all the targets we have. I think that's probably explains.
Honourable Mazloka.
Yes, Chair, I think he's correct. I said program 4, program 3. Okay. It's program 3, social security that I was talking about. But also on the what I want to check, the follow-up, Chair.
You've got a minute.
Yeah, it's around the issue of the integrated, this seamless system. When is the department envisaging to complete this so that we cannot work in silos? Maybe if we can have the exact time. Thanks.
Thank you. Pendulan.
Yeah, Chairperson, it's called the National Integrated Social Protection System. We were supposed to finish it by next year. We had delays because we've done audits within the entire sector with regards to hardware and software, and we need also now to get the whole configuration done. As the colleague has explained earlier, we have got lots of silo systems. What we need to do is to develop an integrated system, but also it's a system that's been province-wide. So we plan to finish and implement the system in 2020.
Thank you very much. You've got a second left. I think it's very important that you must have the time frames. You always say by next year. Next year when? Our time is expiring. The term of this parliament is expiring next year in May. So we'd really want to know exactly by when. The same with you on Ndakane Shipale. You just said we'll send the list. I'm going to give you now a time frame when to send the list of the municipalities by the end of business today, because I believe the list is already with you. And please just try to, because if you were a shop really, I was going to say ni shop ethengisa into yokuthi asinayo ngoku, because members are requesting things. You say you don't have the information now, and my assumption is you should be having the know-how and the information of all all the things that you are dealing with. Whenever honorable members make a request that can you please elaborate on what you are saying in your report, you should have had all the points, because my assumption is you go through the report. And for each and every item that you have listed in the report, you need to have more information on that item. Please, can we then do that? In future, can you try to do that when you are dealing with your report? Just make an assumption that members might need more details on this point, so that those details, you have them as your supplementary part of the answers that you are giving in the portfolio committee. We cannot always have an issue where you're saying, we will send it, we will send it, we will send it. That information, we need it now, because honorable members are going to a recess and they are doing the constituency in their various constituency responsibilities. So they would want to do the oversight and be able to know whether these things that you are presenting in the portfolio committee indeed are they really happening on the ground. But if you don't have any information, you are making it difficult for us as the public representative to make sure that we test what you are presenting in a portfolio committee. Can we really in future try to do that? When you are dealing with your report, before you present it, make sure that the information that you are presenting in a portfolio committee, you have more details on what you'll be presenting in the committee. Honorable Sonti.
Ndiyabonga Chairperson, and ndibonge ne-department nge-presentation yabo. Uprogram 1 andizuba sangena kuye, Honourable Mokgotsi eshayile. Also no program 4 angeke ndibe saya, Honourable Masango usencedile. Ndizawubuza nje phaa ku-program 3 malunga ne-presentation yabo i-department, ngoba ithi ibiplane i-10 targets. I mean yena ithi ibiplane i-10 targets, kodwa kwi-APP enanisinike yona yayi-9 targets. So ingaba ke ngoku enye le ivele phi i-target? Ukuba ngaba ke bengezile, umbuzo wami uthi why bengakhange thina as i-committee bangasixeleli? Nguwo nje kuphela umbuzo endiza kuwubuza, Chairperson. Ndiyabonga.
Siyabulela Mamsonti, nimvile ke andisoze nditolike tu.
Ayasitoliwe.
Qhubekani.
Yes, thanks, Honourable Member. The program 3 also, just like I gave explanation on the previous one, program 4, had a total number of 10 targets in the APP. And of those 10 targets for the period under review, this quarter that you are reporting, they can only meet only 9. So there is one that they did not meet. So that one, when you add it to 9, it gives the total of 10. So it's 9 that we only achieved and 1 that we did not. So that's where the 10 is, and probably the 9 seems to be confusing. Thanks.
Manje uxolo Chair.
Ungaqhubeka, isixesha usenalo lininzi kade kunjalo nje.
Ndiyakhalaza. Mina ndiyathetha ngoku yena undiphu George. Andikuva.
Mamsonti is requesting you to respond to her.
Enkosi ngizokhuluma na.
Yes.
Ama-target ebesinawo wonke aphelele for uprogram 3 lobuza ngawo awu-10 ayilishumi. Kodwa ke ngoba asebenzanga ukuthi siwakwazi ukwamitha wonke, sikwazi ukumitha awu-9 kuphela kulo 10, eyodwa esingazange sikwazi ukuyimitha. So musu ukuhlanganisa konke njengoba usho awu-10 esephelele, kodwa eyodwa sihlulekile ukuthi sikwazi ukudeliver kuyona. So awu-9 kuphela sikwazile ukuhlangabezana nawo. Yabonga.
Right, Mamsonti.
Ndiyabonga Chairperson, right kakhulu enkosi.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the benefit of those who did not understand the question from Mesonti. Mesonti was asking the department that according to their plan programs, they had 10 targets planned and they achieved only 9. then she needed an explanation on why the targets are not planned. He needed an explanation on why the target was not achieved, which the department then has put forward. I think we all have got a report, honorable members, and the audience is large will look at the report and align the answers to the report. Ma'am Sonto, right? Okay. You have saved a lot of time, which is 6 minutes. We seem to be moving very fast today. Lizelle, Honorable Honorable Lizelle.
Fine. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think since I'm last, I think most of the questions that I would have wanted to ask have been touched on. But I think on the issues of the NPO roadshows, which Dr. Matlopa had focused on, she also asked about the outcomes, and she wasn't answered on that. So maybe we can get an indication. But also, maybe you don't have to give us the 17 municipalities that you were in. Maybe just give us an indication of whether you covered the entire country or whether you only focused on certain provinces. Mamnqumalo, you spoke about the fact that the new minister told us that she'll come back to us with a new staffing structure or organogram. I wanted to get time frames in terms of when that will be happening. With regard to the update of the disability index, inequality index, which was successfully updated and is regarded as one of your accomplishments for this quarter, I wanted to get an indication again what this report revealed, because I think there's really something, we're really failing this sector. So I wanted to get an update in terms of the findings and the outcomes. One of your slides talk about the substance abuse and the 57% spending, underspending relating to this conditional grant. I know it's not your responsibility to build these centres, but I wanted to know, do we have an indication by when the Northern Cape and Free State will have their substance abuse centres up and running? If we can get an indication on that. And then in terms of your GBV call centre, I think I often talk about this. It's wonderful that you are getting increased calls to the GBV call centre, and that it's almost about 16,355 people phoning in and contacting that centre. But my question is, how do you promote this call centre? Because I don't seem to know anybody that knows that number. And also, I think it's a very long number. So I want to know, where are you promoting it? How do you get, where is it advertised? Are you utilizing the SABC? I don't think if we ask anybody in this room today whether they know that number. But also the 16,355. Once you receive those calls, is there any way that we are monitoring in terms of how many of those interactions or calls or SMSs were successfully dealt with? Because at the end of the day, we can't just take calls and then nothing happens afterwards. But also, there's another concern. I never see us talking about the integrated plan of action to fight gender-based violence. I know we are forward-looking. This is what you have been doing. But this plan has come to an end. It's 2013 to 2018. We are facing a war and an onslaught against children and women in our country. But I never seem to hear anybody talking about the review, whether it's in the process, what are the outcomes, which departments failed in terms of this plan, what are the processes that we're going to follow after are we going to revive the plan, or is it being, has it failed to such an extent that we need a new plan? So maybe if you can give me an indication about that. And I think I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you. Tony?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and members. I'll start with the last question. In terms of the program of action, before I talk to the call center itself, members maybe will know that there was a diagnostic study that was done by DPME just to look at the POA itself, whether it was properly implemented, what were the weaknesses, and they made specific recommendations that were approved by Cabinet. Currently, the program of action is being reviewed. We're looking at end of November to take it to Cabinet because currently we are trying to consult with stakeholders on the review, because it's not like the document was not that bad, it's an implementation that was a problem, and the buy-in from civil society also. So now we're trying to make sure that every interested party is consulted on the program of action, working with the Ministry of Women. but also there was a recommendation on the coordination mechanism from the DPME, because that was weak since the Gender-Based Violence Council was disbanded. Social development through the IMC is the one that is leading. However, Cabinet directed that we come up with a proposed structure for coordination, and within the Victim Support Services Bill and the POA, that's where we are proposing the mechanism, but we want South Africans to support that proposal before we table it to Cabinet. In terms of the call center, what happens is that there's a back office within the call center itself. There are supervisors that are supervising the call center agents, which are social workers themselves. However, there's also a linkage with district social workers who are follow-upping on those cases that really needs follow-up. And we get reports on monthly basis in terms of the progress that is being made with those cases that have been referred to a particular district. With the conditional grant for substance abuse, Northern Cape is almost done. We are going there on the 26th of June as to celebrate the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. One of the activities is to hand over the facility to the Northern Cape itself by Public Works. However, they had some delays in the appointment of staff, but they are saying on the 26th, it won't be necessarily operational, but it's complete. But before the end of the year, all the staff will be appointed and begin to take admissions. Where we have challenges is Free State. It's really, the construction itself is very, very slow. I think CFO will also add, because they had several meetings to try and find out how can Free State be assisted to finalize, because the issues of service providers was also taking the province to court in terms of the work is really very, very slow. We are also concerned there. The disability index, I think we have to send maybe the report itself to the Secretariat so that the honourable members can read at their own leisure time. Thank you. Peter will deal with the NPO roadshows. The timeframes for the staffing structure. In June, we are going to have a session where we would work around the affirmation of our mandate that will say within the 2015 structure, what is workable? Because we are also conscious of the fact that come 2019 is the new administration and there might be some changes and mergers. So we're saying with the current one, what is it that's going to work for us between now and 2019 so that Minister can take it for final approval, because it's conditionally approved. It's just that they said interact with it and bring it back for you to get a final approval by the TPSA. Peter, and then CFO will...
Just before you proceed, can you assist the honourable members about the areas, the actual areas where the centres are? I think they will be interested in knowing exactly the one in Northern Cape, where is it exactly? The one in the Free State, where is it exactly? In case they would want to go and see the areas.
Thank you. I know that in Northern Cape, it's in Kimberley. The Free State, I will have to check now. I will respond before we close the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, MPO again. The approach of the roadshow, remember, is the contextual part of it was that we target the most poorest area where with access, due to number of studies that have done, due to number of complaints that have been raised, as a supplement to provide easy access for the NPOs that want to register on the spot in that area. And we have got so many municipalities, but we targeted 90 per annum based on the capacity that we have. We know it's not enough. We are aware the demand is higher than that, but we target 90 and then we send staff. Remember, I said the how is done. We go down with a computer and printing materials. They apply, we load them there, and they get certificate as one. Second, you submit a report, we put it, generate a letter, you comply. we provide some information. So what are the impact? We have seen an increased compliance by NPOs. The major issues that we always have, we don't have delays in registration of NPOs. We have got a lot of non-complying NPOs to the NPO Act. They don't send back reports. Some is because they don't understand. But since we have done the roadshows, there's major impact. We've moved from 17% compliance to over 42%, which is something that we are happy with, which we could say, if we had a lot, we would say everybody go out to all 9 provinces and do that. But we don't have that capacity. The other part is that the queries, we receive over 1,000 queries per day at national. That has been reduced a little bit. You can also see even the applications have been reduced. It's one of the impact. The last impact is that if you go to the area, the level of failure of the applications to register has been reduced. We used to have about 32% of all applications do not meet the standard that is required. Just to do a constitution and fill the form and whatever, it takes a lot. But we have seen that has been reduced to just below 20% of those that need follow-ups in terms of applications. So we are seeing a lot of impact by doing that access, which I think going forth, if we have got the money, we could little bit of sub-decentralize the services and we do it per area. Yeah, I think those are some of the things that the impact that we have seen. Thank you.
Chairperson, the center in the Free State is in Bochabella, right next to the hospital. It's on the same premises almost.
Botshabelo or Bochabelo?
Bochabella. Bochabella.
There is Bochabela and Botshabelo. Is it in Bochabela or in Botshabelo?
Yeah, it's about 80 km from.
Then it's Botshabelo.
Yeah.
Okay. Honourable members, the center in the Free State is in Botshabelo. It's more or less 62 kilometers, not 80. 80 will be Tabanchu. It's next to the hospital in case you would want to go and see it. And then the one in Kimberley?
Just outside Kimberley.
Outside Kimberley. It's
next
not exactly
to the mental health center.
Next to the mental health center, honourable members. So we are covered. I think we really have to go and see what is happening in these centers, because you'll remember it's one of the issues that when we got in here in 2014 that we dealt with it. Really, it would be bad for us to leave at the end of the term and not knowing exactly what is happening in those areas. One would have wished that by now it's one of the programs that will be our legacy for this parliament, that at least we manage to make sure that the construction of these centers is finished. Honourable members, I think we have finished all the questions. All the questions have been answered. I was trying to talk to the secretary on the issue of the questions that were coming from the last meeting, which is last week meeting, but those responses have just been sent to her. Now it's difficult for her to can go and print them out because she's here in the committee. I don't know then how are we going to deal with it, whether she should email it to us, forward it to us as honourable members, then we can then look at them and perhaps deal with them when we come back. That will be the only time. When we come back, we can then deal with them. Honourable Bev?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Normally, if we receive it in writing, we attend to it like that, and we've never had an opportunity where we actually bring back the writing questions to the meeting. So I think we can read it. If it's not clear, then we can take it further. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Bev. Honourable members, is there anything? We are right on time. We allocated this session for an hour, the discussions and questions, and we really finished within that hour. Remember, it was only 6 people, which is 60 minutes, and we finished within that hour. Is there anything perhaps that you would want to say on the matter so that we can close the report of the DSD and then move to the next report? Okay, honorable members, I think in the absence of all the issues that you want to raise, let me highlight the few important points that we really, all of you raised that you would want to get more clarity on them. I think the issue of the white paper delay, sorry, not comrades, honorable members, it's very important that it's also one matter that when we got here as a portfolio committee, the white paper was on the table. It's disappointing that we will be leaving this term of parliament without being saying that really we pushed for it. We tried our level best as the honorable members, but there's always been delays and delays and delays. I think in the next meeting, honorable members, when we come back, we need chairperson needs to write to the minister or talk to the minister that we really need more details on the delays, specifically which areas where there are serious delays, because I don't think the whole white paper has got delays. We want to know exactly which are the areas that have got delays. And we must also understand that those delays are impacting negatively on the service delivery, because there are issues that we cannot move with them forward, basically because we still have this outstanding issue. The second issue is that perhaps as a chairperson of the day today, that I'm not happy also in the report, is this issue of non-completion of the strategies. Almost a lot of strategies, the report is saying this one is not completed, this one is not completed. I think the secretary will have to note those strategies that have not been completed, and we make sure also when we come back in our on the next term, we deal with those issues. We get a report on how far are they in making sure that those strategies that are not completed should be completed. Like the issue that Honourable Lizelle has raised on the matter of the review of the child, of the gender integration into child care and protection policy. We need a report on that. That's very important. That's very critical, because it's coming to an end. Are we going to review it? How are we going to move forward? You can see that women and children are under siege in this country. Just for the past week, I think we had about 10 deaths of women that are killed by either their partners or their boyfriends, one way or another. Also, children. So we really need to move with speed on that. The issue of the centers of the substance abuse would want a report, a complete report on that, especially on the Free State, the delays, and what are the issues that are causing the delay? Because we have heard about the delay in the Free State for a long time. It has been delayed. It has been delayed. What steps are you going to take to make sure that there are no delays? Because I assume that you should be doing the monitoring on the progress in these centers, but apparently you are also lagging behind in terms of monitoring the progress in these centers. We welcome the one in the Northern Cape that is going to be opened, but also how do you open it without having the staff? I think the critical issue is you have the staff that are working in that center. You open it and akukho bantu abazawusebenza kuyo, ayincedi loo nto leyo. What we need, you open and we see that service delivery is being done in the center. Then the report, Connie, on the implementers of all the provinces' distribution. Do you have it by now? Because remember I said by the end of this you should be having it. Can you also email it to the secretariat, so that the secretariat can email it to the honorable members? And the list of the NPOs, if you have it, can we also do the same so that the honorable members can also have that information before they leave for the recess? All in all, let me thank you for the presentation that you presented today as DSD. And you are not going to leave simply because now that you have made a presentation, you are not leaving this meeting because your baby is going to make a presentation. And you take the responsibility of what SASSA will be presenting. You know that's how it is done. So if you were packing your bags and telling yourselves that you are leaving, think again, you are not leaving. You leave when we finished with SASSA. Can I then give everyone 15 minutes of break for us to get tea. There is tea that is arranged outside. 15 minutes should be 15 minutes. And you can see that I've been keeping time very well. So I'm planning to keep time, please. And don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. I'm planning to keep time. 15 minutes should be 15 minutes. Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, for tea, 15 minutes for tea. Now it's a break for tea, and then you come back.
Yashaya.
Kaloku nindihayijekile nondihayijek uba ndizibone ndilapho.
It's what's in Friday's book paper. Keep tweeting every day. See, it's in here, so what I'm saying to you, how they get more than 20 kilometers away. It's also in here. My chairperson can be my new permanent chairperson. I'm electing you. Yes, I'm electing you.
acting DG of the department. If there's something that you would want, perhaps the portfolio committee to know before we can give over to SASSA, can I start giving over to you? If there's something that you'd want to say.
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson. There's nothing to introduce. I think the CEO with the team will lead us with the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Can I give over to you, Acting CEO?
Good afternoon, Honourable Chair. And
perhaps before you even continue, those who will be giving the responses to SASSA should come this way, and then social development should move a little bit to the corner so that we don't have a problem of people that are scattered. Let's just have, can you be closer to the presentation here? Let's just give them a moment to rearrange. Thank you, CEO. You can proceed.
good afternoon, Honourable Chairperson and members of the committee, my colleagues. Chairperson, the report that we're going to present today covers probably about a month of activities. It's highly characterized by quite a number of actions that we had to, critical actions that we undertook as SASSA, particularly the implementation of the Suppo and SASSA contract, the insourcing of functions, in particular excluding those of the cash payment services, which will be covered in the report, the enrollment functions that we have insourced and the card issuance, then the extension of the CPS contract for the cash payment services will be covered in detail in the report, and also the report will focus on the activities or the plans that we put in place to ensure that we continue paying even beyond the end of September at the end of this current extended contract for cash payment services. I will hand over to the Head of Strategy, Ma'am Ramokgopa, to do the detailed presentation, Honourable Chair.
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson. Good morning, Honourable Members. The presentation today, I will start to give the presentation outline. We'll look at the purpose, the background, and we'll also give the current payment outlook just to summarize what is the situation in terms of payments and how we've dealt with the migration of, we are dealing with the migration of beneficiaries from the current Green Road card to the new SASSA Suppo card. We also talk about the decommissioning of pay points in certain areas where there's infrastructure and Suppo branches. We'll talk to the cash reduction plan and alternative strategies for beneficiaries who are residing outside the payment infrastructure, and also our communication plan and the risk mitigations. The purpose of the presentation is to brief the committee in terms of SASSA's plans to execute migration of beneficiaries from the old SASSA card to the new Suppo SASSA card in order to enable the phasing out of CPS. Also, we'll look into the plans to decommission pay points in areas where there's sufficient payment infrastructure, and also deal with the Cayman payment reduction plan and the alternative strategies for beneficiaries. Just in terms of the background, in February, SASSA did approach the Constitutional Court again, this time to request a further extension of the suspension of declaration of invalidity of the contract with CPS. But in this particular case, the request was only for cash payment services. If we go back to the services that CPS used to offer, they used to do biometric enrollment of beneficiaries, they used to do card issuance, they used to do card maintenance and card production, they used to do payment for all beneficiaries, including those that were using their personal bank account. So SASSA would transfer all the monies to CPS, and CPS does all the work. But what we have done with all other services, SASSA has managed to take over all the responsibilities, or some of them have been outsourced in collaboration to Suppo in line with our collaboration agreement. So when we approached the court, we were only going for cash payment because at the time we were working on the cash payment tender, and we were aware that we would not be able to finalize it by the end of March. Therefore, we requested extension in order to give us time to go and finalize the tender. Subsequent to that, we looked at, there were challenges with the cash tender process. There was a service provider that approached the minister and the department with complaints, but other than that, as we were working through the IMC, already when we issued the tender, we were working on 2.5 million beneficiaries. But by the time we were finished, by February, already the beneficiaries who were receiving money at Cash Point, PayPoint, have drastically reduced. And in line with the plans that we have made, it was clear that by the time we award the tender, there would not be 2.5. And therefore, you would end up awarding a tender to a service provider with 2.5 while you're going to service less than 1 million beneficiaries. And therefore, a decision was taken looking at all the facts and the complaints that we have received from the other bidder. We realized that we may be taken to court unnecessarily, and therefore we had to relook at our strategy. Subsequent to that, Suppo was approached to say, in line with the agreement that we had, Suppo was supposed to do the electronic banking, and we approached them to say, as part of the payment system, we are requesting that Suppo extend its services to cover also the cash beneficiaries, because in the service level agreement, it was still included, but as a may, not as a must. So that was amended just to ensure that we cover from Suppo. But we'll look into the strategies to say, does Suppo have the capacity, and how will we deal with it? Part of the agreement with Suppo was that they were going to do the build, operate, and transfer, meaning that after 5 years, they would bring the services back to SASSA. But as government, in terms of collaboration, we're saying that if you want somebody to put the necessary infrastructure, and you are saying that go and invest and bring back the service after 5 years, automatically they'll be reluctant. So we have had to review our strategy in terms of how we collaborate with Suppo so that it becomes a government influenced infrastructure so that it can serve the communities into the future. And the other thing that was important was that as we agree with Suppo, part of it is that it's not profitable to ask the banks to go and develop infrastructure in rural areas or in remote areas where it's not profit, there's no profit. But if you influence Suppo, it's government will take the services there. So it's a long-term investment for government, the way we have looked at it. So the current service agreement with Suppo is in the process of being reviewed to address the new elements. The tender has been cancelled, and it was cancelled, is it last month? Just last month. So we have had to go to Suppo to say, review your work and let's re-strategize. So I'll give you progress in terms of where we are. But before I go into the progress, let me just give you a scenario of where we are in terms of the payments. In terms of the beneficiaries that are using biometric for verification, currently we have, as at June, we have 1.9 million beneficiaries that are receiving money using biometric CVM, and most of them, there are those who go to cash pay points, there are those who go to ATMs, CPS ATMs, and there are those who go to merchants. So most of the beneficiaries are flexible. They go wherever it's possible to collect their money. But the typical people who stay in pay points are less than 1 million. And the 1.9 are the ones that are facilitated by CPS, and these are the ones in line with the Constitutional Court extension. And if you go back to the pay file of March and of April and May, the numbers used to be 3.1 million. It has gone down by 1.16 million. And this just reflects our commitment to say we want to phase out CPS. So we've been aggressive in terms of reducing the numbers that CPS. So we don't want to come August and then we start to say CPS we are reducing. So every month we've been working on a strategy to reduce this number such that come August we are left with a very minimal number, and September we have nothing to do with CPS. In terms of the beneficiaries that are receiving money at the banks, the pay file in its own is got 8 million, but of the 8 million, 1.2 million are receiving the money into their own commercial bank accounts. This excludes Green Road. And then with Green Road, in the pay file, we released 7.7 million, but of the 7.7 million, 5.6 are the ones that are still using the old SASSA card, and the others are EPE cards, which we are seeking mandates from CPS before we can confirm that in future we'll continue to pay in these accounts. And then now I'll go into what is our 5 months plan going forward. The guiding principle for the next 5 months for SASSA is such that, one, CPS will be eliminated, fully removed, phased out by September 2018. Cash payments will be reduced drastically. So beneficiaries who stay in areas where there's developed payment infrastructure will be migrated to electronic forms of payments. And those that want to still use biometric for withdrawals, they can get into post office outlets for verification and payments. But in remote areas, we have developed an alternative strategy to address beneficiaries who are residing in areas where there's no payment infrastructure. Our new payment model is premised on Suppo as the dominant player, but we also engage with the commercial banks and the retailers such as Boxers, ShopRite, and all the big retailers in general, so that, and they've all agreed that they want to participate, and we have written to, we are in engagement with them to sign agreements with them so that they can provide services. And then the critical driver in the next 5 months is that we have to do card swap as a matter of urgency. And because we have cancelled the cash payment tender, we have decided that our card swap will prioritize primarily those people at cash pay points, because if they have a new card, then we'll be able to deposit money. But we will be phasing out the whole card of the old SASSA card and introducing the new SASSA card. And our card swap program started in May, on the 7th of May. The first element in terms of the migration, the card swap, there are more than 7 million beneficiaries who have the old SASSA card. All those 7 million have to be swapped into the new SASSA Suppo card. So we've commenced with those at cash pay points, but in May, we were using May as a pilot for the card swap. So far the numbers were slow, and we have learned the hiccups. We've had to deal with the network infrastructure that was making it the process to be slow. Coming in June, the numbers will start to go up. And then we also plan to migrate all beneficiaries. Okay. Our priority will be beneficiaries receiving social grants at pay points. And upon people receiving this new SASSA card, beneficiaries would now have the flexibility either to go to Suppo outlets to withdraw, or use their banking infrastructure, or go to retail merchants, or any numerous point of sale devices that they have within their proximity in their residential areas. In terms of the targets that we have put for ourselves in the next 6 months, in March, we didn't have any targets for card swap. In April, we had a target of 250,000 to do card swap. And the reason the target was low in May was that, in April, was that before you do issue any card in the industry, you have to produce it, take it to the industry for testing before the Banking Association or the Payment Association of South Africa can approve it. So we produced only 250,000, and they were taken to the industry and to all the banks to test it, and it was only approved at the end of April, and therefore we were able to start to produce more cards. So the target for May was that we were planning to produce 2.3 million cards. As at the 25th of May, we had produced 1.4 million. Actually, we had produced more, but the ones that were distributed to the SASSA outlets were 1.4 million. The issue being, because we have the company that is producing is outside the country, so some of them were held at the airport. What do they call it? At customs at the airport. So they will be coming in, but we have also learned, we have started to engage the Reserve Bank so that we can speed up the process. So these cards, once they are available, they are distributed to the different outlets of SASSA. And then in terms of card swap for May, we were planning to do card swap for 214,520. By the 25th of May, we had done 63,248. However, during this weekend, there was massive card swap programs that were happening across the country. We haven't consolidated the statistics, but once it's updated, we can email it to members just for further information. And then in June, we are planning to intensify the card production to 4 million, because now we have dealt with all other challenges. The target is that by end of June, we want to have done the 2.5 million card swaps. Why? Because by end of June, we want to have completed all the cash beneficiaries in terms of the card swap program. And July, we are targeting to produce additional 4 million. The reason we are producing more than the required number is because you always have to have additional surplus in case there's problems with any card, in case there's new beneficiaries, and in case people lose the card. So you always have sufficient for storage purposes. And in our intention is to do card swap for 7.9 million beneficiaries by end of August. In terms of the cash reduction strategy, of the 3.1 million beneficiaries that received social grants in April, 2.2 went to cash pay points, but the number has since been drastically reduced. SASSA has taken a decision to reduce the number of beneficiaries at cash pay points due to the following reason. The country, when we developed cash pay points previously, there was lack of development in terms of payment infrastructure in the townships and also in the rural areas. But right now we have fairly extensive infrastructure that has been developed. And also the beneficiary behavior shows us that the beneficiaries are no longer going to pay points as they used to. Some still go, but majority prefer to go to merchants and other outlets. And therefore, based on the statistics and the analysis, we have seen that who are the beneficiaries who prefer to go to cash pay points and who are those that are flexible. And you have to adjust your strategy to align to that. The primary objective is that the beneficiaries who are currently collecting the money from the 8,086 active cash pay points are redirected to alternative methods. The target is to reduce the numbers from 2.2 to 800,000. So only 800,000 beneficiaries will be those that will be catered with the normal, the ones that are fairly goes to the cash pay points, and therefore our strategy in terms of the cash payments will be targeted to the 800. The end goal for SASSA is that over the long term, we want to do away with the cash payment component because it's not as safe. And if you look at the cash highs that are happening recently, you can see that it's not something that we can sustain over the long term. The critical to the cash reduction plan is also the card swap program, and will also be decommissioning of pay points because these pay points, some of them we are paying a lot in terms of the leases, and some of them they are only paying 100 or less than 100 people. So we need to rework our strategy and re-strategize. We are also investing in the upgrading of infrastructure for Suppo branches in order to absorb the high volumes of beneficiaries that would be coming as we close or decommission pay points. As indicated, once beneficiaries receive the cards, they will go to the outlets and the retail and the banking infrastructure to do the withdrawals. In terms of the targets for cash payments reduction, in April we had 2.2. In May, the number reduced to 2 million. In June, we are at 1.9, but we are hoping by the end of the payment cycle, those who actually went to go to the cash pay points, we are thinking that it will be less than 1.5. But based on, if we look at the statistics from last month, it can even be lower than that. In terms of the July, we are hoping to reduce the number to 1.2, and by end of August, we want to have settled at, not by end of August, at the beginning of August payment cycle, we want to have reached our ultimate goal of 789,000, and this will be done by card swap and also decommissioning of pay points. We have also readjusted our payment file so that those beneficiaries who have PINs but still choose to go to the pay points, we encourage them to utilize their PINs because they have been flexible and going either to the bank. If the payment date is on a weekend, those people, you'll see that they rush to the banks. But if it's on a Monday, then they turn around and go to the cash pay points. So we're starting to also influence the behavior, beneficiary behavior. But we are also encouraging beneficiaries to say, you don't have to withdraw the money, buy, because it's not always safe to carry the money. So utilize the card also for other mechanisms. And then in terms of decommissioning of pay points, as I indicated, we had 8,086 active pay points, and we are projecting to reduce them to 3.121. And of the 3.121, there'll be 789 beneficiaries. If you look at this table, it shows the per province, how many pay points we have per province. Like, for example, in Gauteng, we used to have 144 pay points. Our target was that in May, we will not decommission any pay point, but we have already decommissioned 51 pay points across the country, mainly in Free State and Mpumalanga and Gauteng. And then in June, we are planning to decommission 1,282, and majority will be in KZN and Eastern Cape. And we're hoping that by the end of August, will be remaining with 3,121, and the total to be closed will be 4,965. And of those pay points will be remaining with 789,954. Of this plus minus 800 beneficiaries, there's still child support grant beneficiaries that are included. And you know they are flexible in terms of behavior, so the number may even go down once people start to get used to other methods of payment. But our strategy in terms of alternatives that we are developing is to ensure that these 789, although they will be getting the SASSA Suppo card, they still need arrangement to say how do they withdraw the money. And the alternative strategy that we are putting in place is to ensure that now we take the money to them in order for them to utilize that card. Our alternative plan is such that Suppo will issue the card swap by end of July, the cards to these beneficiaries by end of July, and by August, we'll start to ensure that these beneficiaries, Suppo is in the process of procuring mobile ATMs, which we will take to the remotest areas. However, for those pay points where there's few people, what we are planning is that we will be looking at the possibility of contracting local players to transport the beneficiaries to the nearest pay points. We are also engaging with the South African National Defence Force and the South African Police to assist us in terms of getting to transport money to that areas. Suppo is also extending its cash in transit contract to accommodate this arrangement that we are working on. Furthermore, there's Regulation 24 and Regulation 25, which allows beneficiaries to utilize procurators. So we are busy also encouraging beneficiaries, those that are frail or older, to also appoint procurators to assist them to go and collect the money. Already within the payments file, we have our payment system. There are 308,000 people who are procurators who are receiving money on behalf of beneficiaries. So it's something that is workable and it's been utilized by SASSA for years. But the regulation further allows us, even institutions within the communities, some institutions can be encouraged to start collecting money on behalf of the beneficiaries. You put them in one account and the institution distribute to the people in the local areas. We are also working on those possibilities, particularly where you have small groups of beneficiaries. In terms of the summary of our communication plan, we saying that the successful implementation of the card swap or whatever mechanism that we do, particularly in terms of decommissioning of the pay points, we also need to consult with the traditional leaders and community leaders and also beneficiaries. We have also contracted auxiliary social workers to do the house-to-house visits in order to encourage beneficiaries and tell them the benefits of doing the card swap. But we were conscious to say, if you take auxiliary social workers, they know how to handle people. So you are avoiding this situation where you get people who can go and start to victimize older persons. So we were trying to get people who understand the care issues. That's why we prioritized auxiliary social workers. Department of Labour has also offered us some workers to assist in the process, and we're still working on the process around how we can contract them, and if it's possible, how to vet them so that you avoid a situation where people take advantage of the beneficiaries. There'll be targeted communication and marketing campaigns that we have already started. We have started with the advertisements in the radios and everywhere so that people can understand what is happening and what is happening to what are the benefits. So we've just included a slide that shows some of the timeframes that we are working on. When did we start and how far will we go? But the major thing that is our main area right now, our main focus is the card swap, because if we can remove the CPS card, then it's easier to remove CPS by end of, we want to ensure that the card swap is done before August, so that come August, when you write the August report to court, we are already telling them that this is the last month and we are comfortable with that. And we can confirm to the committee that our plan is not to go back and ask for extension. That's why we are intensifying the card swap process. In terms of the risks, our risk mainly is that there's inadequate Suppo branches in terms of the fiscal infrastructure. Some of them, the branches are there, but they have been inactive for years. So we are working with Suppo to reactivate those branches, but also to upgrade the the infrastructure of Suppo, and already we've done the costing of the work, and they are in the process. They've started with some of the branches to start with the upgrade. The other challenge that we experienced, particularly during the first weeks of card swap, was the IT infrastructure. It was very slow. So we have improved our network connectivity so that it can deal with the workloads. The issue of inadequate security, cash in transit, and guarding, we are also increasing the capacity of service to service the additional beneficiaries. We have also requested Suppo to extend its contract for cash in transit so that it can cover the numbers. There's also under capacitation of HR in Suppo branches. Suppo has already started with the process to appoint 2,600 people. Already so far, they have appointed more than 1,000 of this. It's 755 that they had appointed by last week, but I think this week they've added the numbers. We also have insufficient cash at Suppo branches, and because it's risky to keep cash. So we are working on strategies to help Suppo to do the proper costing so that we can do the numbers and the projections so that we only take the sufficient cash. But the other thing, the intention is not to keep a lot of money in the branches, but to have the cash in transit that brings the money into the branches, but it's the same as we were doing it at cash pay points. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but we are working on that strategy. The other thing is that we have had counter communication whereby CPS were telling beneficiaries that the old card is not going to be decommissioned, and also telling them that they promote it. It's like when you go and communicate this, they would go against it and communicate. And our counter strategy is just to intensify our communication strategy. But card swap, let's do the card swap. Let's get beneficiaries to change the card, because once they have a tool that we deposit the money in, it makes life easy. And what we are intending is that this old card, come the 1st of October, SASSA will not deposit money into this card if people don't come to do the card swap. So we are encouraging everyone so that even if CPS says it will be working, but SASSA will not be depositing money into the card. System response in terms of network and integration, we are working on that to improve the system capacity in terms of capacity, but we are also doing the offline card swap so that we can go and reconcile at the back. But we've put security measures in order to ensure that we don't end up having the double dipping or fraudulent cards that are being issued. We are recommending the Portfolio Committee to note and support SASSA's plans to execute the migration of beneficiaries from the old SASSA card to the Green Road card, also to decommission pay points and the cash payment reduction plan, and the alternative strategies that we are recommending for the 20-kilometer for beneficiaries who are residing outside the 20-kilometer payment infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. But before I can give over to the honorable members, I just want you to clarify for them so that when we are doing the discussions, this point are much more clarified. The issue of the tender, you just went through it. You did not go to the details. I would want you, before you can even give the honorable members, to give the details on the issue of the tender, on how are we going to move forward, whether we are still moving forward with the tender or what's going to happen to the tender. That's the first thing. The second issue is the issue of the last issue that we talked about the CPS counter strategy and so on and so on. I think myself also as a chair, I didn't get much details on it, because look, we are a country that respects the rule of law. There should be something that is supposed to be done when CPS counteract the strategy that social development is putting forward or SASSA is putting forward. So I would really want you also on that matter to then give the members more details on the issue of the CPS, basically because, honorable members, the issue of CPS, it's really, really serious. What they are saying that CPS it's out there trying to counteract the good thing that this government is putting forward. Just yesterday, as part of our constituency work, I received a message from Indawo okuthiwa yiNgqolwana in Durban. What they are doing there, what CPS is doing there, it's charging the old age people for a card 65 rand. to get a card. For a grant support charge, is charging people 30 rand for the card, for issuing of the card. I would really want, because apparently the councillor there and other leaders who are there, they reported the matter, and there was a SASSA person who was there whom they requested to take the matter forward with the executive of SASSA, because it might happen that what CPS is doing is not only doing in that areas, because it's targeting the rural areas. You remember even Chairperson last week, he raised the matter that CPS is out there doing things that are not supposed to be done. For me, I believe what they are doing is wrong. It is wrong to charge that 65 rand that I don't understand myself. What is the 65 rand about? We want you to investigate the matter and give this portfolio committee a report on the matters that the CPS is busy doing, counteracting the strategy that is being put forward by government to make sure that the social assistance is received by beneficiaries out there. Can you also try to give us more details so that when members are discussing the matter, at least we have more details on the two issues? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. With regard to the issue of the cash payment tender, after the Constitutional Court gave us an extension of the contract with CPS only for cash payment, at that time we had already started with the evaluation processes of the cash payment tender award. But in the process, it came to light that there were quite a number of issues that the prospective bidders had raised. And that included their questioning of the information that was given to them in preparation for them to respond. And then at one point, they had asked quite a number of extensions of closing dates as well. But that having been said, the court had already determined that by the end of September, we should have finalized the issue about the cash payment tender. So after reviewing all of those potential issues, the issues that the people were raising, then they also wrote to the minister and indicated that they've got serious concerns and reservations about the process of this cash payment tender. Now, executive management also looked at this and said, what is the potential that we can successfully award this tender? We came to a point that the chances of successfully awarding the tender without a protracted litigation were almost close to zero. So what we decided to do was to first suspend it, and then after that, cancel it. That is why, to compensate for the potential need to continue with cash payment in the current form, we then introduced the strategies that we are highlighting here to say we are going to encourage our beneficiaries to move to other alternative grants payment methods. This includes, yes, the banks, it includes Suppo branches, it includes merchants, it includes mobile infrastructure that will be placed in those rural areas. It is for that reason that we believe that if we intensify the swapping of our people from the old Green Road card that they were using to get their cash at the pay points, if we migrate them to the new SASSA Suppo card, number one. Number two, ensure that they find location of infrastructure that can enable them to encash their grants. But the residual group, which is about 789,000 beneficiaries, these are largely in the most rural areas. These are the ones that we will consider extreme measures, such as, in consultation with the local communities, to locate them through the use of the social workers. If we cannot use procuration services, then we can look at Regulation 2425 to say, can we have institutions or even individuals that can assist to bring the services to those people? But along that was to consult extensively with the banking industry, with the retail industries and merchants to say, can they extend infrastructure for our people to access their grants? And there's a very good cooperation among these alliances that I've mentioned, that they are willing to invest and ensure that they actually are able to provide those services. However, if an extreme measure such as using the services and the assistance of the South African National Defence Force in the meantime, while we're sorting out the infrastructure issues, to take the money, assist us and Suppo to go and pay those beneficiaries, we shall do so. If we have to contract with local transport industry to take those few beneficiaries from those people areas to the nearest infrastructure, be it a Suppo, a branch, or a NPS infrastructure, be it a mobile ATM, then we will do those arrangements. But our determination was that we will not allow the extension of the current CPS cash payment tender beyond September. So some of the measures are quite extreme, but we believe that this government, we cannot fail. We can actually reach out to our people. So between now and the end of July, we are aggressively intensifying the reaching out to our people, using the services, the alternative methods. But by the end of July, we will have a clear indication of what will be the residual, other than the one that we've forecasted to say is about 789. That number could actually be lower, and we'll intensify bringing it further down. And we've also realized that our beneficiaries are quite mobile. Some of them, for example, the child care or child support grants, these are young mothers that are pretty mobile. They can go to a cash pay point, after getting the money, actually move to town to go and do whatever they need to do. So we are communicating with them with targeted messaging to make sure that they utilize the close to them payment infrastructure, other than the classical cash pay point places. But one needs to also mention that there's been an upsurge of cash in transit activities in the country. We cannot turn a blind eye to that. It will take one mad criminal to throw a bomb in the cash pay point assembly point where our beneficiaries are. You can imagine the disaster. So we are both thinking in terms of how best can we also protect our beneficiaries, because there is a risk that when they cannot be able to waylay or ambush the cash in transit van in the road, they can actually go exactly where they are assembling and cause the disaster there. So this is what we have taken into account when we propose these alternative cash payment methodologies as government. And also, we have just had our first meeting with the National House of Traditional Leaders in Pretoria on Monday to assist to ask them to assist us in reaching out to these communities where there is potential risks of people not being able to be reached in terms of the infrastructure. And there was an overwhelming support from the traditional leaders in the country. And I think they will be going along with us in trying to make sure that we change the payment methodology of grants in the country. And last part, Madam Chair, you asked about the counter strategy. In fact, as early as this morning, we have issued a correspondence to the executive regional management to say they actually do the monitoring of exactly what distortion messages and activities happen at cash pay points. As I'm speaking now, we also picked up that there were other attempts, and these are allegations, we're still waiting for information, whereby it was said that the payment cycle is shifted a bit, brought forward, so that people can be enticed to go. But when they get there, they get told, if you don't have a green card, you can't get your money, wait for another 2-3 days when SASSA cycle will commence. Those kind of things. We are very much...
by CPS.
Yes. It is alleged. I don't want to go on record as having said that is happening, but it's an allegation that came from informal sources. We are investigating. But we want to say that if needs be, we will use our intelligence services of the country to actually go and monitor what are our beneficiaries being told, because we can fight in competition world, but these are people. We cannot use them as chess pawns. And therefore, we are definitely intensifying that. We have said to our regional executive managers this morning that if needs be, we will definitely take legal action if there is proof. And in certain areas, we ask them to record the discussions or the threats that are being made to our pensioners. And we know as soon as we get that, we'll definitely take legal action. I think as government, we have got what it takes to rid of this state of being captured by private sector people. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that supplementary information. Honorable members, this was just a supplementary information to beef up the whole report. So now I am going to note your hands, or open up the floor for discussion. We're going to follow the same pattern of 10 minutes, questioning and everything, so that we make sure that all the questions of the members are answered too. I started noting Honorable Mazopa while I was speaking, her hand was up. It's going to be Honorable Mazopa. And then for this one, I'm going to start with Honorable Lizelle. She was the last one. Let me give her the second. And then Honorable Masango, Honorable Beverly, Honorable Mamsonti, are we only having those 5 hands, Honorable members? With Honorable Mkhoti is not here, I'm going to ask her when she comes back, because when I closed, Honorable members, the session of discussions, it's closed. We have been moving quite well with the social development, so I hope that the same strategy that we followed, we are still going to follow the same 10-minute strategy with all the discussions and the questions that we will be asking honorable members. Honorable Mazopa, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. Thanks to SASSA for the presentation that is very clear and promising that they are moving forward, although there are challenges. Chair, I wanted on what you raised to say it needs to be investigated for CPS. What disturbed us is the fact that we don't know how does CPS come in the card production, let alone to charge people. Because the responsibility of production of the card, we're told it was Suppo, although SASSA before was skeptical to say that they don't have capacity, you know, but at the end of the day, they are dealing with it. I don't know, Chair, what is the role of CPS now when we are phasing it out, its contract? Because really you have made a progress around that particular matter. But what is the role of CPS? Really, it's scary if they can continue to, if it is true, because we are not sure it's allegations, that they are continuing to put their finger on what SASSA is trying to do to the beneficiaries. I think I agree with you, Chair, that it needs to be investigated, and if they use the intelligence of the country, do so, because this thing of counteracting what the government is doing is really unacceptable, because these are the people that really make the problem for government. People come to government as if it's government that is having a problem, but they are trying to do this thing. I know that in a capitalist country, it will always have this challenge that we are facing as a country.
Are you okay, Honorable Maluk? Yeah. You're fine. I think to add on that, on the issue of in your investigation, you must also add, because the allegations also are saying, they are claiming that now they are going to be a bank. I think if you have got answers on that one, can you really assist us also if this CPS is a bank or they are going to be a bank? Because that's what they are saying in the beneficiaries out there. And honorable members, I think when we are doing this, when we are doing our recess work during the recess constituency work, we must also go to these waypoint areas and be able to test what is being presented to us by the members of community out there. You can respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think at the moment, CPS has got no role in card production. Card production is a competency of SAPO. But obviously, they might be having reserves of the previous green card that they had already. So these are the cards that they use to let the people to take. If a person comes there and then they give them that card. But in terms of card production going forward, the new SASSA card, Suppo card, is actually produced by Suppo. So they do not really have a role in that card production value chain, but they're probably using the reserves that they always had. Probably they had anticipated that they'll continue rendering services beyond a certain point, so they might still have stock that they kept in stock. And I do agree that the investigation, although we can't, say a lot about it here, but definitely the investigation is being planned, of course, to make sure that we assemble all the information, including the charges that the chairperson spoke about of 30 rand and 60 rand and so on. Once that information is assembled, we'll make sure that the correct action is taken by government, because definitely it is undermining government to distort information that government has pronounced on, and particularly targeting the people that may not necessarily have the level of understanding of what's happening. But all what must happen is that once their money seems to be under threat, they actually get very much concerned and worried. So they are easy targets, as it were. And I think it's our duty as government to protect our people, and we'll take those measures, use all the organs of state to counter this particular dishonest dealing with our beneficiaries, as it were.
Okay. Are you covered, Honourable Mazopa? You still have 5 minutes.
No, I'm covered, but this is a fraud. It's meant to be investigated. It's really a fraud. We must not take this easy.
Thank you, Honourable Mazopa. I think as a portfolio committee, we will have to make a recommendation, recommend to the relevant structures on what needs to be done as soon as possible, honourable members. Honourable Mkhotsi, you were out when I was noting the hands. I don't know whether you are covered. You don't have any questions.
And maybe just we are going to put a tombstone on top of CPS by September.
Thank you very much. Honourable Lizelle.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And just on that last point, this issue of the fake news and the disinformation campaign that CPS is driving is actually very serious, because not only are there the messages going out that card's not expiring, there are also these fake SMSs going around that saying that the card is expiring now and you've got to rush yourself to the SASSA office or the post office, and people are panicking. I once went on a radio station and I gave my email address and my cell phone number. So I am a SASSA official as well, because all the complaints come to me and I try to assist as much as I can. But Chairperson, let's just be serious for a moment. We've spoken about this on countless occasions. We need a full parliamentary inquiry into CPS and their dealings in our country, because they violated a number of laws. They have infringed on the human rights of our most vulnerable. They have violated the National Consumer Protection Act, the National Credit Act, many other acts, and a full parliamentary inquiry into the dealings and the unethical business practices of this company is needed. So when we do discuss this as a committee, we actually cannot let CPS just exit without any repercussions. We, as members of parliament, have got a duty to hold this company to account. We commend SASSA that they're moving so fast. I mean, it actually amazes me that for so many years we were not able to insource payments, and within a few months you were able to do it yourselves. So it again speaks to something that is very rotten with the relationship that there was or existed between CPS and some individuals. But I want to ask, also in my dealings with some grant recipients, we have received some complaints that some branches, Suppo branches and SASSA branches, don't have the new cards. So I wanted to know whether you've received any of such complaints, that there are some branches that don't have any of the new cards available. There were also some complaints, I get some complaints where people are saying that, when they go into the branches, there are very long queues, and some of the SASSA officials are not very helpful, and I think I'll forward some of those complaints to you. I wanted to ask, in terms of your negotiations with National Treasury, for them to subsidize the banking fees, not only, for all banks. How far are we, and when can we expect some feedback in this regard? Because that 10 rand that is being deducted from pensioners,
people are really crying about that 10 Rand and they cannot afford it. So I need to know where are you in terms of your negotiations with Treasury so that we can subsidize that 10 Rand. I want to say lastly that, you know, listening to your cash payment plan, one has to commend it because we want to see the end of CPS, we want to see the back of CPS, we want a full parliamentary inquiry. So one has to support your cash plan that you've outlined. However, it really, for me, I feel a bit worried because, for example, in 5 months, you need to implement 3 pillars, and that is that the post office must have mobile cash points, which again, when we spoke earlier about criminals, those are going to be a target for criminals, those cash machines, those mobile cash machines. You spoke about ferrying people with local transport to cash payment points, and you talked about involving the SANDF. It sounds like a massive operation to get into place in 5 months. And I'm just sort of feeling that, you know, while one wants to support your plan and say, you know, 100% go for it, it seems that there are too many things that can go wrong in this plan. It doesn't feel like a foolproof plan. Whereas if we went the tender route, you know, we probably would have had one service provider who's able to pay out the cash. Now we're relying on 3 different elements, all of which can be compromised. So I'm just, how certain are you that we will be able to pull this off in 5 months?
Thank you very much, Honourable Lizelle. Can we get the answers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will ask Sipho, the Head of Legal Services, to talk about the subsidy of charges. But with regard to the issue of stock levels at SASSA offices or SASSA Suppo offices, yes, there was a point that there were stock level issues. I have a teleconference every Monday to do national roll call and just get update. It didn't feature this outgoing Monday that there were such, but we'll investigate those. Those could be sporadic incidents where there was a shortage of cards in those particular offices. And then the issue of long queues, there was a problem with regard to systems response times. That included our verification mechanism with the integrated justice system, whereby the system during the day was really clogged because of the high number of all of a sudden verification of biometric images via the IJS system. We're working on a solution. We are quite at an advanced stage whereby the verification can be done in batches overnight, just like you want to do systems maintenance overnight. So we're working towards that, and we show that we should be able to alleviate the clogging of the system for verification overnight. And I'll ask Sipho to respond on the one on subsidy. But before then, there's an issue of where the honourable member says, how confident are we in the plan, these alternatives that we put forward here? There are certain elements that you cannot really go in detail in terms of exactly what else will be done, and this includes for security reasons. But we do believe that, yes, every plan has a risk. A foolproof plan doesn't exist anywhere. So we believe that with the assistance of the communities that we work with, as I indicated, with the traditional leaders, with the local councillors, we'll find some other ways of expediting and making sure that the plan materializes. But as government, we cannot say we are not going to be able to do it.
Morning, honourable members. The issue of subsidy has come up very often with the interaction with the banks, the retailers.
Can you bring the mic closer to you?
Okay. The issue of the subsidy has come up several times when we discuss with the banks, the retailers, and the panel of experts. You will recall that we have never subsidized before, but we're paying transaction fees to CPS. So because you are an implementing agency and not a policy department, we have drafted a memo that is on the table of the CEO. Yes, it went last night to be signed we are raising the issue with the department. So the department can, in consultation with National Treasury, take a decision around this issue, because it's not for SASSA to make that decision on a subsidy. I hope this clarifies the issue.
Are you fine? Melizelle, you still have time.
Yeah, no, the question, thank you for the answer. The question wasn't really about, I know that SASSA is not an implementing agency and that the policy directive must come from National Treasury. But I was just asking in terms of where we are in terms of the process of addressing it. But I think since it's now only in draft form, we will be kept updated in terms of the progress of the negotiations with Treasury. Thank you.
I think social development is also here. Now that we've heard that there is that, you should also start initiating the process. Because you are here, you are hearing it, that SASSA can't do it. You are the ones that are supposed to be doing it in collaboration with the National Treasury. So you must begin to initiate the process. Masingalindi memo, sesivile le nto uba iyaqhubekeka. Thank you. Are all your questions answered, Honourable Zen? Okay. Thank you very much. Can we then move forward to Honourable Masango?
Thank you, Acting Chair. I think some of the questions that I wanted to ask have been asked already by colleagues, and thank you for the presentation. It really has helped a lot. The question that I want to ask it just dovetails on the issue of the 10 Rand, because one gets on a daily basis so many emails and WhatsApps and SMSs about this. When the minister was here the last time, I believe, she mentioned that Green Road took 10 Rand on their own. And the minister said, we are challenging this. I would like to know how far the challenge is and what are likely results for the people from whom this 10 Rand has been taken. And also, another question that I wanted to ask was there seems to be a lot of confusion, also just getting from constituency work that one does and the communication that one gets about where the beneficiaries have to go to either swap or apply or whatever. I just want to know about the number of trips that need to be taken by a beneficiary and what does it entail, what should they take with them and things like that. I mean, there are scary things where people are being charged by opportunists that charge them money for them giving them forms. It's very scary out there, and beneficiaries who are already vulnerable are being rendered even more vulnerable. And also, the other question I wanted to ask here is, are there still CPS people in SASSA offices? Because there used to be people within SASSA offices where you were told that that desk belongs to a CPS person, even for this portion of CPS that's still happening until September. One would like to know if that, because that could also be an opportunity that they are using to do the marketing that they are doing to the people. And lastly, Chair, one appreciates a lot this timeline that has been given here, and as the acting CEO has said, the intention is and the work that is being done is towards ensuring that this timeline works, although there is no foolproof plan. But now, the issue that one hears this morning about the looming strike of SASSA employees, I mean, at such a critical time, one would like to know, I mean, I know it might have been something that just broke this morning as one heard it, but what are the issues there? Is SASSA, what is the status? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Masango. Can you respond?
Ma'am, I will ask with regard to the issue of Green Road, how far we are. Indeed, the challenge has commenced, but Sis Pusi will respond to that. And then I'll ask Sis Dai to respond on the issue of the swap trips and the forms, and also with regard to whether there's still people in certain areas or offices of SASSA, CPS people there. And then I'll just quickly touch on the issue of the looming strike. Yes, we are aware that there is a looming strike, but the matter as it is now, we are still discussing, and we should be able to make certain pronouncements upon our discussion. I think it's premature now to say exactly where we are, but we are definitely engaging in this regard. The attitude that we have is that whatever differences that there may be, here it is citizens that may be affected and this is our parents. So whether you are a member of organized labor or an employee, it doesn't really matter. If a strike happens and it affects your mother, she's gone or he's gone. So we are working together to discuss and make sure, hopefully, that we'll get some under common ground to avert the disaster that may happen.
Thank you again, Chair and honorable members. We have sent the issue of Green Road to our attorneys who are dealing with it. The last letter that we received from Green Road, they said they were still consulting with their attorneys. But I can just assure the members that this is one thing we're not going to take lying down, because they even requested a meeting, but we wanted to know what is the subject matter of the meeting, because if it's about the fees themselves, we need to bring along our attorneys as well. Because they made a promise that they were going to charge the beneficiary 691, and they changed to 10 Rand without any notification. And we felt that they are the highest charging a bank when we compare with other banks. So that is why we're not going to let this one go down without a fight.
Okay, Dan.
Thank you, Chair and honourable members. The issue on the card swap. For June, we're really focusing on the card swap at the cash pay points, because the priority is to get our cash beneficiaries into the new card. There are certain sites, and particularly like the weekend blitzes that we're doing in certain areas, where anybody in the community is being told, if you're using the current white SASSA card, come in to get your new SASSA card. The SASSA card is not yet available at all of the post offices. They are still rolling out the equipment and everything to be able to do it. And as soon as that is available, then people will be able to go at their leisure, I say at their leisure, but within this period, to go and get a card, the new card at those post offices as well. In terms of what they need to take with them, all they need to take with them is their current SASSA card and their ID document. And also there is no need for them to take the children with who get the grant, that they receive the grants for. We only need the person who actually collects the grant to come in. So just the existing card and the ID document, and then the swap will be done. If anybody gets reports of people charging beneficiaries to do the card swap, or charging them to get any forms to enable a transfer into a bank account, please let us know immediately where it's happening so that we can go in and investigate and put a stop to it. There is no charge for the service. It is part of what we have to do. And it's not a charge from SASSA, and there's not a charge from Suppo, and there's no charge for the card. So please, if you get those reports, let us know immediately. With regard to the question on whether there are CPS staff in our local offices, we've got a total of 389 local offices. Currently, we only have a CPS presence in a total of 185 of the local offices. And the only reason we've kept them there in those specific offices is because those are the offices where the majority of the people still use biometrics to access their money, so they still go to the pay points. And if the money is already in the old SASSA card and that card doesn't work or they lose it, we need to be able to replace the card for them to be able to access that money. If the money has been withdrawn and they lose the card, we're giving them the new SASSA card straight away. So it's an extremely limited service that the CPS staff are allowed to do in those offices. They're no longer doing any biometric enrollments. They are no longer issuing new cards to beneficiaries. And they're not taking on, we're not allowing any new applicants to choose cash as an option. They've got to immediately get the new card. So we've really limited what they're doing, and we are constantly revising this list of the 185 offices to be able to get the CPS staff out of the offices completely. We're hoping that by July, by the end of July, we should not have a CPS presence in our office at all, and all they will be doing will be servicing the cash pay points. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that they will not be there, because I visited one of the cash pay point areas and the offices in Butabelo, and they were there and they were still working, getting our people to join, because there is this belief that they are a bank. I think, honorable members, what we need to do, all the queries that we have, the areas exactly where these things are happening, we can then forward them, perhaps through our secretary here, forward them to SASSA, so that they can be able to go to those areas and physically verify even during the recess period, their lines will be open, honorable members, for us to call them. It would be nice if we call them on the site when we are doing this our work. When we see all these problems, we call them. They come down because there are offices almost in every corner in South Africa. Then they see exactly what CPS is doing, because it's our belief that what they are doing is wrong. It's a belief that what they are doing is wrong. We've got the SASSA legislation that tells us exactly who is supposed to be doing that. Yes, over the years we had problems. That's why we ended up having them in as people who are giving out the cash payment. But now when we are taking that to us and doing exactly what the Constitution requires us to do, we cannot have people that are going to disturb us in the road of making sure that the cash payment is fully taken by government, whether any institution of government. Honorable members, we are on Honorable Beverly.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and thanks again for the presentation. I've got a few questions, and if I repeat, pardon me, because that maybe it wasn't clear. Will all beneficiaries have the option over-the-counter withdrawal? Because people has asked if they go to Suppo, can they go and stand in a queue, preferably instead of going to an ATM? And then also, regarding CPS of issuing of cards, I know the acting CEO did respond. But again, who authorized them to still continue issuing cards? And then also, you mentioned that Suppo is responsible for the cards. But who are producing these cards? Besides them just issuing the cards, who are producing the cards? Who are manufacturing these cards? Is it a tender system that we don't know about? Because, Honourable Acting Chairperson, we sit here and I just want to go back to the last page where SASSA is asking us to note and support the planes. Now, we'd love to do all that, but then just as we leave this room, we see social media saying what they have done, what they're going to do. So we support planes, but it changes immediately. And we are scared to actually do the supporting part. It looks like we're not doing our oversight part. Yes, that is what I want to know. Then can the new card be utilized at all chain stores besides the merchants? The merchants sound so like in the olden days, if you're a merchant selling other stuff besides good stuff. Besides the ones that the department is mentioned, if people go to any store, can they utilize their card? And are there any charges involved if they utilize the card at any of these stores, if they don't want to utilize the merchants? And then in terms of the September deadline, I'm concerned, Honourable Acting Chairperson, that there may be beneficiaries that won't make it for the September deadline. And we know how vulnerable our people are. They wait for their day where the SASSA grant will be paid out. How will we handle that to make sure that everybody will receive their funds when they need to receive it? In terms of the rural areas, whereby merchants would mainly be utilized in the absence of Suppo, are there any charges involved again? And just for information, my constituency is watching us alive and well, and they have posted most of these questions. They say they're watching because they don't always get the opportunity to be in Parliament. So everybody there out in my constituency, please listen carefully. And how can the department prevent mothers from abusing grants, purchasing food, and they buy everything else besides food? Also, how can the department assist the mothers not to go to loan sharks, as they put it, the money lenders? I don't know if there's any assistance there. This is also from the constituency. How will the department assist, this is a direct question, all money lenders in our communities at houses having ATM machines and keeping our books? I'm just open brackets and close brackets. They're keeping their Suppo books, their ID books. They're keeping their Suppo, the cards, the SASSA cards. How can the department assist to close down all these people operating within the communities, not in a secret place, but in communities, openly operating? They are asking for help, please. Then I've asked this before. The communication again, social media. We receive social media that is not true. We would like in SASSA to please communicate with us as soon as they release something that we also know, so we can communicate with our constituencies. And when we receive something via social media in whatever way and form, even print media or radio, because sometimes local radio stations also announce these things, that if we send out something, it's authentic, and that we also don't repost because it goes viral within minutes. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Can we respond?
Yes, I'll ask Diane to take the first batch of questions because they directly have to do with the grants but the one with regard to cut production, the contract that we awarded to Suppo had the part of the contract as cut production, and I know that they have outsourced the cut production. I think the cards might be produced somewhere overseas. They are shipped into the country. But for now, what I do know is that the function to produce cards was outsourced to Suppo, and I think they work with a service provider to them to produce those cards. But the rest of the questions with regard to the grant operations, I'll ask Diane to respond to them.
Thank you, Chairperson. And honourable members, the question about whether beneficiaries have the option of an over-the-counter withdrawal at post offices, yes, they do. The card will facilitate the over-the-counter withdrawals where they would be able to get cash, understanding that they are going to stand in a queue, or they can use an ATM within the post office infrastructure or any other banking infrastructure or point-of-sale devices to be able to access their money. The question around who authorised CPS to continue issuing cards, CPS is no longer issuing the SASSA card. Where people lose their card, when they come and report it to SASSA, they are immediately given the new card if they want to continue receiving their grant in that card, or they then tell us that they want to get it in their bank account. So it's a choice that they have. I think we need to distinguish between CPS in partnership with Grindrod as a private bank, opening easy pay accounts and issuing those cards. Those are things that SASSA does not control. We can only control the issuing of the SASSA card. But if people choose to open an easy pay account and get the green card, then they need to follow the same process as any other beneficiary who requests to have money paid into their personal bank account. And that means they are saying, I know this is a personal bank account, I have taken it voluntarily, I want my money to be paid into this account, so SASSA, here is my mandate form to give you the authority to do so. And they need to follow that process. There is no shortcut. And that is because Grindrod operates as a commercial bank in that space. If people choose to have those accounts, we would honour their request. But CPS is certainly not issuing or continuing to issue the old SASSA card. It's only the new card that is being issued, and that is being issued by Suppo. Whether the card can be used anywhere, any stores, anything. The new card is a debit card. It is backed by Visa, so it can be used anywhere where Visa is accepted. It is a special disbursement account, so there are restrictions on the card. For example, this new account does not allow any EFT debits or stop orders. So as we roll that out and get rid of the old card, that problem is going to stop. We put in those restrictions specifically because we're saying this card is specifically for the payment of social grants, and therefore it needs to protect our beneficiaries. So it has those kind of restrictions, but other than that, it can be used anywhere. It is a debit card, so as long as there is money on the card, it can be used to purchase goods at any store. It's not only the few that used to be used, like the boxes in the ShopRites and so on. It can be used at any store for purchases or for cash withdrawals, for asking for cash back.
I hope it's not used in liquor stores.
We're trying very hard to put a restriction on there, but at this stage it's Visa endorsed, and there are some things that we can't control. So we will continue working on those kinds of things, but it is not a block at this stage. The other thing that I wanted to say about the card in terms of the costs, if a person uses the new card to withdraw cash from a bank ATM, there is going to be a small charge. And that is because it is related to the interbank fees, again, which we can't control. It's related to the banking infrastructure and the costs there. So there will be a cost, but it will not be the kind of cost that we've seen for bank charges in the past. Also to say that there is no account maintenance fee on the new SASSA card, like the 10 Rand that people are paying now, which is the account maintenance fee, because it is covered in terms of the agreement between us and the post office. So we pick up those costs for the new SASSA card. So it really is in everybody's interest who's using the old SASSA card currently to get their grant to swap to the new one as soon as they possibly can. It reduces costs, it gives some protection, they can use it anywhere, the money will be deposited into that account, it will be available on the first of the month, like the old card, and they can then withdraw the money or use the card whenever and wherever they want to. That's the stores, any stores, rural areas, urban areas, whatever, that accept Visa would be able to honor the card and either let it be used for the purchase of goods or services or to do cashback. Provided obviously that store has the cash to be able to give it back. And I think those are just the kind of mechanics of working within the national payment system. Some of the questions like with how we can prevent mothers who receive grants from using the money that we give them for anything else other than food or for the benefit of the children, or how can we stop beneficiaries from going to money lenders is extremely difficult. We're giving people money, we've put in the protection that we can. How they use that is really up to them. However, we are saying, and the legislation does support us, to say that if anybody is aware of a social grant being abused in any way, in that it's being used to buy liquor instead of food for the children, or that it's being used for all other things and not supporting the children when it's a child grant, please, those need to be reported so that we can actually then investigate and, if necessary, find somebody to administer the grant on behalf of the children and make sure that it's used in their best interests. But for us to put a stop on it is extremely difficult. Exactly the same as with the money lenders who operate in communities from the local houses. What we can say is for any money lender to retain an ID document or a SASSA card is illegal. It is not allowed. So where it is known that it is happening, please report it. And together with the law enforcement agencies, we definitely do follow up on that. We do have staff who work very closely with the law enforcement agencies and who, where this information is reported, go out and do a blitz and will go and confiscate the cards and arrest the money lenders and so on. But we really rely on the community information that comes through in order to be able to help us to do that. Okay, I think those were all the grant-related ones. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Additions?
The other one, Chairperson, was with regard to the communication, social media counter, strategies and so on. We definitely have our communication on that because it definitely happens, from time to time. But we've taken the comment that we'll do as speedily as we can to ensure that the authentic message is actually communicated to all the people as urgently as possible.
Yes, but I think the point is you must not communicate this in the portfolio committee. Then in a social media, it's something that is different. We ended up ourselves as honourable members now fighting with the information that this is the correct one that we got in the portfolio committee. There is this one in social media. Just try to be consistent in communicating your information from SASSA. Honourable Bev, we've got a minute left if you still have anything.
Thank you. Let me grab my minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Mam Sonti.
Yes. Yes, I'd like to thank the officials for the response, especially the Easy Pay one. That is a concern wherever you go in game. Also, you see an Easy Pay wherever you know. And the Easy Pay one is the one where actually the people get the loans from, and so on. So we'd like SASSA to also work on getting rid of the system of the loans, because that is people who say you don't understand, we need extra money, but it is not right, and so we need to assist that. So I'm happy with there's restrictions on that card, and no EFT and stop orders. What about
20 seconds?
What about the funeral schemes that people have on the account, And then also the swipe and go. I've noted on your new card, Chairperson, just allow me quickly. The swipe and go, that is very dangerous. I know we must go with the times. I don't like it personally because you swipe and you go. No, nothing is asked. And then if you lose your card, you're in trouble. What if a goggle loses a card and somebody picks it up and go, quickly swipe and go? How can we avoid the swipe and go on SASSA cards? Thank you.
That you are going to respond at the end when Mam Sonti has finished because her time is up for questioning. So she used the other time. Now we are going to Mam Sonti. Just bank that for if in case we've got minutes left from Mam Sonti. Mam Sonti.
Nkosi Chairperson. Ubukhe wathi kuqala kufanele sibuze imibuzo sikhomente one by one. Babe baphendule ukwenzela okokubana singaqhensi endaweni eyi-one or sibuze into ibisele ibuziwe so that masiphendule zonke ezi zinto kakuhle. But ngoku kuyanyanzeleka Chairperson sixhense kule ndawo eyi-one ngoba kaloku iyatshisa le nto kuthi sonke. Nithi yintoni? Cash payment system. Mna ndibona ngathi okanye iyawuthi izilunge le nto singathi yi-cash payment system, sithi yi-corruption payment system le-CPS. Because why nditsho kanjalo? Andazi.
CPS bendothukile ndicinga uthi isasa.
CPS. Corruption payment system. Fanele siyibize kanjalo okanye iyawude ibe iyadeda. Ngoba kaloku andazi kungakanani kunini kuthethwa ngale nto eyi-one engadediyo phakathi kwethu, phakathi komphakathi, phakathi kwesizwe sonke. Phofu kuyo yonke le nto yenzekayo Chairperson ngalo CPS kuafektheka abantu bakuthi kabuhlungu. Ezi mali zithathwayo kwaba bantu ingekho phofu ingabonakali kwayona iphinde futhi ithathwe ngale ndlela ethethwa ngayo. That's why ndisithi ayiseyo cash payment ngoku seyi-corruption ngale ndlela. So bendikhe ndacinga uba ke kumbuzo bendizawubuza kuqala ndizawubuza okokubana ayikhona indlela engenye engcono or ekhawulezileyo ebalulekileyo angathi adediswe ngayo lo CPS. But ke izithethi esezithethile ndiyeva okokubana inzame zikhona. But ezi nzame kudala zikhona akudeske kuphumelele. Even nalo August bathetha ngayo mna ndiva ndisoyika andinalo ithemba because u-CPS ungumqobo. Ilizwe lonke lidiniwe uyaqonda. Sekuvakala noba ngoku kungenzeka nee-strikes into ezibuhlungu ezo because xa kuzawuthwa kustrayikhelwa into zeemali zabantu abadala kukhona nokulimala kwiindaba zestrike. Istrike asinama-results amahle okokuqala. Kuzawufa abazali, kulimale abantu abangenatyala. So ndibuhlungu kakhulu yile nto. I wish ideske ibe iyadlula indaba ka-CPS because lo CPS kudala ithathwa le mali kukho kwinto zama-airtime. Uve ukuthi ikhehlekazi lithathelwe i-airtime alinayo nditsho le fowuni yokufowuna but i-airtime yona iyahamba. Lithathelwe i-electricity alinawo nombane endaweni elihlala kuyo but imali ye-electricity ihambile. Iwesi ke ngoku Chairperson uvela nendaba yama-65 rand nama-30 zibuhlungu zonke ezi zinto. Ba-corrupted ngolona hlobo ndithetha ngo-CPS. Khanizame kangangoko ninako adede nkosi yam. Makungenelelwe kakhulu kakhulu kakhulu. Ndibabuhlungu Chairperson. Thank you.
Siyabulela Mamsonti. UMamsonti kakhulu ebethetha ebekhomenta akabuzanga mibuzo uchaza into yokuthi nyani lifikile ixesha loba ngoku i-CPS should really be phased out. Remember, we are all talking about the phasing out of the CPS. Whether they like it or not, we need to come to a stage where we forget the name. So, Mamsonti, you were left with 7 minutes. In that 7 minutes, I'm just going to allow them to answer Honourable Bev. And then Mama Zopa, if there's still time on the 7 minutes, I'm going to give over to you to wrap up whatever that you want to wrap. Because I want to be consistent with my principles, honourable members. The principle has been clear. We agreed about it. That is 10 minutes flat. But because I'm taking the opportunity that time on Mam Sonti, we had a lot of time. So Mamu Bev would answer and then we move.
Sorry, Chair. Can you explain why I'm saying that the CPS must be the corruption payment system? They must know. Nabanga violate 20 please, don't dodge.
Mamsonti bayivile khabe bengafuna uyithetha ngomlomo wami.
No, bakhona
Bakwesitulo sika-chairperson ngoku.
Bakhona bangayivanga, Chair, please.
Kaloku kwisitulo sika-chairperson Mamsonti zikhona into eziprotectwayo ezu-chairperson ongamelekanga uba uzithethe ngomlomo. Ngoba uzawuthi xa ziphuma pha phandle kusuke kuthiwa ithethwe nguwe ungu-chairperson.
Ndiyaqala ke ngoku.
Ndicela i-protection nakwezinye i-members ke nyhani dadewethu. Ndicela i-protection even from other members.
Izinto.
Andikwazi kaloku uba mna ndingatransleyitha ingcinga yakho yoba wena ubiza u-CPS njani. Mna ndisezawumbiza ngoba ngu-cash payment system kule ndawo ndihleli kuyo as u-chairperson.
Can somebody ke anganceda translate ke, please?
Ndifuna ukukurula out dadewethu.
I don't think it needs any translation.
Yes.
It's crystal clear.
Yes, yes. That's what I'm trying
Even
to
me, I was
Thank you,
following
Lizette.
all the way.
Yeah. Thank you,
I'm
Lizette.
clear.
Thank you.
And
Thank
maybe
you, Lizette.
we'll give you 10 out of 10 today as well for your chairpersonship.
Can you respond to Honourable Bev's question?
Madam Chair, I'll ask I maybe to respond to the issue of the swap and go. I'm hearing it for the first time actually, but maybe she will respond to that and the issue of funeral policies. Thanks.
Can you respond, Daya?
Thank you, Chairperson. The swipe and go, which is those little waves on the card, is a standard banking requirement. It is not activated on these cards. Okay, so they're not swipe and go, they're PIN or biometrically enabled. But that's a standard requirement in the banking industry. So not to be concerned about that one. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, the other one around the concern with the easy pay and the loans. I think as much as we understand the concerns being raised by the members, the members also need to understand that that is a commercial bank product which people voluntarily take, and we can't go and get involved in that one. We can make sure that there is compliance with the process if people want to be paid into that account, that they understand what they're asking for, but that is where our responsibility has to end.
Thank you, Honourable Mazopa. I've got 2 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I remember that I only used 3 minutes in my time.
No, but even Honourable Mazopa, let me also correct that one. Even in the beginning, people did not use all of their time, and we forfeited. When we have passed you, you just forfeit the time. So even on this one, it's just that I'm taking an opportunity of the time that Mesondi has not used. Thank you. You can continue.
Thanks, Honourable Chair. No, my concern, Chair, is around the issue of the card production by Suppo, also outsourcing it. And outsourcing not in the country, overseas. Is it because we don't have the manufacturers of the card in the country that we can go outside the country for just production of the card?
Honourable Mazopa, I'm not so sure whether SASSA will be able to answer that question. But if you remember, at some stage when Suppo was here doing the presentation and during the time of SCOPA, I think the answer that we got at that time was already they had an existing contract with the same contractor or service provider, even before the collaboration of SASSA and Suppo. They already had their own existing contract with a company that was doing that for them. If you remember, honourable members, it was set in a portfolio committee. So I don't know then when is the contract with that company that they were having is coming to an end, because you can't, in my understanding, you can't get into something new simply because you've got new people. You'll use the systems that you've already been using. So Suppo will be in a position perhaps at some stage to answer that question to us on the matter that the contract that they already had with our company, when is it coming to an end? And then we can also make suggestions as the honorable members. I think I think I've tried to cover that, because at least I still remember what they said in the portfolio committee. Honorable members, we have come to the end of the presentation by SASSA. I think the most important issues that we raised here, one would also want to highlight for SASSA to assist the honorable members will be the issue of, you said that you've got the weekend bad card swap lists in communities. I think we need, as honorable members, to have a schedule. Now that we'll be going to our recess, if you can just give us the schedules in different provinces, which weekends, where are you, so that we can also go there and be able to play our oversight roles in those communities. The second issue is the issue that Honorable Lizelle is not here, that Honorable Lizelle talked about, although that one is for honorable members, the issue of a parliamentary inquiry. I think honorable members know exactly what they need to do, the process that they need to follow in terms of instituting parliamentary inquiries. And then the issue of CPS, all the investigations and everything would really, from time to time, we'll appreciate it if you communicate to the office of the chairperson, giving us information on how far are you with the processes of what CPS is doing out there in our communities. We must also welcome your initiative that you talk to the traditional leaders, because I think the portfolio committee was very straightforward on that one, that when you get to these communities, make sure that you consult with the traditional leaders, you give them the respect that they deserve, because you can't get into a space of somebody and not let the person know that you are in that space. I think we really appreciate that. You must also involve other progressive NPOs, CPOs that are there, community-based organizations that are there in the organization, in the communities, in terms of all the processes that you are doing for making sure that the payment system, it goes without any hassles. With those few words, thank you very much for the presentation, and we hope that you'll keep on having communication with us. Do avail your numbers to the honorable members so that they can get you, and please try to respond to the questions or to whatever that the honorable members are asking you to respond. We are going to be away for almost 2 months, so in that 2 months, let's keep the communication on the matter of SASSA going on. Thank you everybody that has been here for the whole day. So honorable members, we've got a lunch that is prepared for us. I'm going to request that honorable members should be the one that gets the lunch. And then I will propose to the honorable members that we have a working lunch. We take our lunch, we come in, we continue with our committee business. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. Masesiqeda.
Ufuna uthetha emva ko-chair?
Sibulele indlela osiphethe ngayo namhlanje. Thank you, ne?
Ndiyabulela. Ayabulela mayirha.
Yes, Mzondi.
Just start. Then everybody will follow back shape. It's upon you. The sun is upon you.
Yes.